Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. With I'm gonna burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you. Toadstool Sports. Best bets coming up for, what is today, Wednesday? I never know what day it is anymore, man. Everything's a blur. Wednesday, November 19th. 3-2 on the show yesterday. Definitely should have been 4-1. The Golden State Warriors, not a good call by me. That was a bust. They pretty much were never in position to do anything with that one. They lost. That was bad. We started out decently with the rest of it. I mean, Eastern Michigan, they started out hot. They blew the lead. Then they were losing. Then they came back and they won the game anyway. So we did get the win with Eastern Michigan in college basketball. That worked out. Pepperdine in the late slate. Latest game was the last game to finish. They were out to a huge lead early, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be easy, blowout win. And then they blew basically the entire lead. They were still hanging on to the lead by margin, barely. And then they actually blew that, and they were up 1 point with like 3 minutes left or something like that. And I'm like, oh, my God, they're actually going to blow this thing. But luckily that didn't happen. They did not actually fall behind. They held on to the lead, extended the lead a little bit more. There might have been some intentional fouls in there. I don't know, but they did win and cover. They won by more than... if you got like the later numbers at 4.5, they beat that number too. So Pepperdine hit. Tampa Bay Lightning, easy win. Luckily, because the rest of hockey I was not really great on yesterday. So hockey was a minefield, but I like Tampa the most, and they got the job done with a 5-1 win. I haven't looked at the box score on that yet. I'm assuming it was probably somewhat misleading, but it was still an easy win for Tampa. And then Memphis was the one that... in NBA, Memphis Grizzlies, that was the one that absolutely should never have happened. Like, if you look at the box score in that game, it makes absolutely no sense how they didn't even cover a +6 in that game. Like, well, first of all, they were winning the game outright for a huge extent of the game. They were winning outright with like 2.5 minutes left in the game. So at that point, it's like, you're going to tell me there's going to be an 8-point swing in the game in the final 2.5 minutes? That's not likely. Although, of course, 7, I know, is a key number. They're going to stop intentionally fouling at that point if they actually manage to fall behind by that much, which they did. But if you look at the box score in that game, Memphis had 17 more field goal attempts in the game, so they had way more possessions, which that's an indicator that, like, there's no way that you should lose the game at all, let alone not even cover as a 6-point underdog when you have that many more possessions. And their field goal percentage wasn't that much worse either. They also dominated the rebounds, which makes sense because that's how you get a bunch of those extra possessions. Came on offensive rebounds. They had 21 more rebounds in the game. How do you have 21 more rebounds and 17 more field goal attempts and lose the game by more than 6? It's such bullshit, dude. Like, there's no way. Absolutely no way that should have happened. I think some of it was like free throw disparity. I don't even know, but I don't think that one was an incorrect call by any means. Like, that one pissed me off. We're gonna have a 4-1 night. Golden State was the one bad one. Everything else should have come through. All right, it was a winning day though, so we continue with that. I'm gonna give out 6 plays today, 5 college basketball plays, even though the board has less on it than it did yesterday. I like this board a little bit better. And I'm going to give out 1 NBA play. I don't love NBA or NHL tonight. I'm going to have some reservations about it, but NBA is really, like, I'm just fading a team that I think is in a god-awful spot, and that's pretty much the deal in the NBA. Dirty Sock, what's up, man? Thanks for coming back. Jeffrey, what's up, man? Good to see you guys again. All right. We'll get into it, man. I know I'm early, but college basketball takes a while, so we're going to get into it. We do have Middle Tennessee and Michigan up at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Michigan ranked 7th in the country. They're still undefeated, but they're coming off 2 really close calls against Wake Forest. Michigan was really in danger of losing this game. I went into overtime. Michigan 15.5-point favorites in this game after they blew a big lead that they had in the middle of the game. They actually had to make a late comeback, so they had the escape there. So then I thought Michigan might show up with a little bit more intensity in their next game, but it was at TCU, and it was their first true road game of the season. And Michigan did not do well in this game either. They were in danger of losing this game too. TCU had the lead throughout the second half, and then they TCU just basically stopped scoring at the 11:45 mark. They didn't score for 4.5 minutes, and that allowed Michigan to tie the game. Very low-scoring game, though, and Michigan wound up with another escape. So now Michigan's off 2 escapes. So it's like, well, what's going on with Michigan? Are they overrated? Do they just overlook these opponents? Like, what's the deal? Maybe those opponents are better than we think they are. I don't know, man. I mean, some of these early season results are outliers. Ken Bum has Michigan 14th in the country. I don't think they're as good as people think they are. They're overranked according to him in the rankings here. Although Ken Bum, his numbers are still they're early season numbers for him, so we're still adjusting and trying to figure out who these teams are. My guess would be that they show up in this game, though. Of 2 very lackluster games, they're facing this Middle Tennessee team that is not good. Even though they're 3-0, they have 2 wins against non-Division I teams, and then did win on the road at Evansville. But how good is that, really? Probably not very good. This is a step way up in class on the road at Michigan. I would lean to Michigan in this one. The line's already up from 24.5 to 28, so missed some of the better numbers on that one if you do agree with that. 95% of the cash on Michigan. Tickets evenly split at 50-50. I think just because if there are recreational bettors getting involved in this game, they just see Michigan. Oh my God, Michigan barely beat these 2 other teams. Like, how are they going to win by this much against Middle Tennessee? Yeah, well, Middle Tennessee. Actually, Ken Bum has them at 149th, so that's not as bad as I thought. I'm not going to do anything with this game, but maybe Middle Tennessee actually isn't as bad as I thought, but they really have not been tested at all yet. Harvard is at Penn State. Harvard's coming off a nice upset win at Marist. Marist has turned into one of the better MAAC teams over the last couple of years. Pretty good win for Harvard. Now they got to go on the road to Penn State. Harvard does have back-to-back big games coming up against BU and BC. Those are Boston rivalry games where BC is considered to be the biggest brother in Boston. I don't know if Harvard considers themselves to be a little brother to BU, though. BU is actually in a worse conference. I think the Ivy League is actually better than the Patriot League. The Patriot League's awful. Those are big games, though, nonetheless. But is Harvard going to overlook Penn State? My guess would be probably not. Penn State, they're a Big Ten team, 4-0. Haven't really been tested at all yet, but Harvard, this is one of the bigger opponents they have on their schedule, so I don't really think they're going to not be focused on it. Penn State is definitely better than they are, though. Penn State, again, they've not really had a test yet, although they are just staying at home, but they do have Providence up next, which is a bit of a bigger game because that's a Big East team. So it's possible that Penn State does overlook Harvard here. The money seems to be indicating on Harvard. Penn State, 12.5-point favorite. 62% of the tickets and only 50% of the cash on Penn State. So the money indicating on Harvard. I mean, Harvard's not a bad team. Penn State ranked as pretty lucky in Ken Baum's rankings at 25th, and of course, very weak strength of schedule, 322nd. They play slow as well, so if you're asking them to cover a big number, they're less likely to do that than some other teams because they don't play fast. Don't have a whole lot else to say about that, but Ken Baum only has Penn State at 84th in the country, which is not great for a Big Ten team. Harvard, 173rd. He does have Harvard high up in the luck index, too, at 30th, and a very weak strength of schedule as well, 336. So, I mean, I'm not touching the game, but I just figured I would point out. I mean, the game was a little bit interesting when I looked at it. All right, we're going to go to the best bets already. I'm going to give out a play in both big games. We'll keep some interest in the show, baby. Now that I've actually erased the entire deficit that I put myself in college basketball. Tracking since the beginning of 2022, I was way up in college basketball. My volume is so high that I was actually down by 30 units or something probably after last season ended. But now I've done so well in college basketball this season so far. I'm actually overall, for the last few years, I'm actually back up again, barely, in college basketball. So we need to keep it going, man. Sneak into Harvard and write betting lines on the blackboard. Is that is that Goodwill Hunting? Goodwill Hunting, was that Harvard or was that MIT? I should know. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I should know because that's a very Boston movie. But Saab, what's up, man? Yeah, Kraken. I mean, I agreed with it. It was not my strongest opinion, but yeah, that sucked. I didn't see really the box score in it or whatever, what happened in that game. But, all right, let's get to this first play. We're going to lay the points with UConn here against Arizona. I mean, this is number 3 UConn versus number 4 Arizona. So, the public is going to have a tendency to look at this and think getting points is the sensible thing to do here. This line's already up to 6.5, though. I mean, I don't think there's not a huge difference between 5.5 and 6.5, although every possession matters. I mean, if you want to lay anything below 7, you might be good on this. UConn's got a little bit of the public action, though, 73% of tickets, but 92% of the cash on them. So more of the money is coming in on UConn, it looks like. And again, I would think the public would have a tendency in a game like this where the teams are so evenly ranked. The public would seem to have a tendency to take the points usually, and I do not agree with that. UConn, I think, is a legit top 5 team. Ken Baum has them at 6, but whatever. And then he does have Arizona at 9th, so he does have them close. But there are some things that I don't like about how this sets up for Arizona. He has both teams high in the luck index. Does have UConn having faced the much weaker schedule so far, which that's because their biggest game so far was against BYU, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. He does have UConn overall as the better team, though. And UConn plays really, really slow. Usually, although they've actually played a little bit less slow this year. And I know a slow-paced team, you don't usually want to lay points with them. But if they could throw Arizona out of the element that they want to be in, Arizona wants to play fast. UConn's going to try to frustrate them and go slow pace here. And I think they'll be able to do that because this is a true home game for UConn. This is in Storrs, Connecticut. And this is part of the handicap here because Arizona, this is their first true road game of the season. They have not left the Pacific time zone yet, and they're having to fly to the East Coast, which I know it's it's a game at night, so it shouldn't really affect them biologically necessarily, but it's still that first true road game and having to make a cross-country trip. I don't think that's easy. And on top of that, the reason why Arizona has the more difficult schedule is because, they played Florida to open the season. They got that win. Now everybody loves Arizona because they did that. But they also beat UCLA in their most recent game, and that is a huge game, dude. Arizona, UCLA, it's still this big former Pac-12 rivalry game. That was a monster win, and that was in LA as well. It wasn't a true road game at UCLA, but it was in Inglewood, California. Huge game, and now they're coming off that, and they got to fly cross-country and play a better opponent than UCLA. I don't think the spot sets up well for Arizona here. UConn is 3-0 at home. I mean, they've played 3 home games so far, and then they played a neutral site game, although it was a better site for them. And I believe it was in Madison Square Garden. Oh, no, it was at TD Garden. Sorry. It was at the Garden in Boston. So UConn really did have a home edge in that game, I would say, as far as the crowd is concerned. I watched a little bit of it, and it seemed that way, but they barely escaped against BYU. So you might look at that and think that's a big win, but I look at it and I think that it was actually like UConn actually took their foot off the gas in this game. They were up to a 6.5-point favorite in this game. You know me, I think BYU's overrated. I thought UConn would cover in this game, and if you look at what happened in this game, UConn was absolutely destroying BYU. UConn was winning this game by almost 20 points with 13 minutes to go, and they really just took their foot off the gas, man. I think UConn started looking ahead to this game and didn't expect BYU to make a comeback, but BYU, they could score a lot, and that's exactly what happened. They came all the way back and got to within 2 points in the final minute, so UConn got a scare at that point. So I think that UConn's going to show up with a lot of intensity after almost blowing this game, although I know UConn had some really high field goal percentages in this game, which normally I wouldn't want to be on a team that shot 57% from the field and 44% from three, but this is just a spot where I don't think Arizona's in a good spot, and I actually think UConn was a lot better in that game than the final score indicated. And UConn was absolutely dominated BYU in that game. The game was not close, and it should not have been that close with the final score. So, yeah, we're going to lay the points with UConn in this one. All right. You're on it as well. Were you on Saab? Were you on it before I mentioned it, or are you doing it because I'm suggesting it, and or maybe I'm confirming your opinion on it? I don't know. Yeah, hopefully we get these right, though. Obviously. All right. South Alabama and Jacksonville State was just a weird one when I broke it down because South Alabama's 5-0 and Jacksonville State's 3-0, but I'm looking at this and I'm like, these teams have faced unbelievably weak schedules, although South Alabama does have a win on the road at Toledo, which is not too bad. Jacksonville State has faced absolutely nobody. So, I mean, this game, I was just like, how do you even handicap this when you have no idea what these teams are right now? Jacksonville State's a 2.5-point favorite. I mean, it was just, I don't know. I just found that game funny. Like, it's not a game that I would ever want to do anything with. Before, hell yeah. Bethune-Cookman in Ohio, as we're getting through the 7 p.m. slate here. I was on both of these teams in their previous games, and they both covered for us on the show. So that pretty much means, I'm not going to want to be on this game because both teams are coming off big games, although I think Bethune-Cookman, they're probably the team that you'd rather fade, or that I would prefer to fade at least, because they played Dayton really close, man, in that game on Saturday. This was a winner for us. They covered the 21.5-point spread, only lost by 9. They were never really in the game, but they really never went away. I mean, they were down by 7 points in the final 6 minutes. Bethune-Cookman put in a full effort in this game, man, as a big underdog. So coming off that, it's not really a team that I would want to play on, even though Dayton, we got the cover in this game, even though Dayton shot 54% from the field and 58% from three. We still got it right. So that was a solid handicap in that one because you could avoid the ridiculous field goal percentage from Dayton there. But Bethune-Cookman's coming off that. Second straight road game going to Ohio. Doesn't look like the greatest spot to me. I think this trip to Ohio they're making here, you got to think Dayton was the game they really put in the effort for, and they fell short. And now I think they're going to be in a flat spot here against Ohio. Problem is Ohio's been kind of all over the place too. They went out to the Pacific Coast to play St. Mary's. Then they came back and they got the cover for us also on Saturday, although it was a slightly earlier game. They covered against Louisville, though they did lose by 25, covering the 31.5. This game was never in doubt as far as Louisville winning the game. So I think this does set up better for Ohio in this game, though. Ohio, they covered for us, but the game wasn't close. They do have somewhat of a big game up next, though. Ohio does against George Mason in some early season tournament action in the Sunshine Slam, which is in Florida somewhere, the Beach Division. That one's in Daytona Beach. It should be beach basketball, man. It should be outside. It is not, though. So Ohio, I mean, maybe it's a little bit of a look-ahead spot. That's why I don't want to get involved in this. Ohio should be the favorite in this one. By how much? Let me see. They're up from 6 to 6.5 in this one. So, yeah, Ohio's the favorite. I think the public's going to have a tendency to not really want to lay points with a 1-3 team, though. Although Ohio has faced a more difficult schedule because they did face Arkansas State, actually a pretty good Sun Belt team, and then road games against St. Mary's and Louisville. I mean, that's pretty difficult. Although Bethune-Cookman did face Auburn. That was the most difficult one they faced. They did face Miami and Dayton, although those teams are not quite as good. So I still think Ohio's schedule has been a little more difficult. But do with all that what you will. But UMKC, Valpo, and Mount St. Mary's. All right, I'm going to talk about all three of those games. All right, what other games am I even going to talk about here as we get through this slate here? Youngstown and Toledo. I mean, this is an Ohio battle here that I considered it because Toledo's coming off that game that I mentioned yesterday where I said Detroit Mercy put in a big effort. So I thought they were going to be a bit flat after this game because Toledo, they're a decent team. I mean, I think they're better in football than they are in basketball, but they're like a decent MAC team in basketball, I would say. And Toledo did not cover. They only won this game by 7. There were some points where it looked like they might lose the game. So I think Toledo, after kind of a bad performance, I'm expecting them to put in a better performance against Youngstown. Although my issue here would be that Youngstown, they're also in Ohio, and I think Youngstown probably considers themselves to be a little brother against a school like Toledo. So I think Youngstown is going to show up for this, but Youngstown's coming off a really difficult game, man. They went into St. Bonaventure as 9.5-point underdogs. The Bonnies looking like they're going to be one of the better teams in the A10 this year, probably. Are they in the A10 still? I think they are. I get all the conferences mixed up at this point with all the shifting, but yes, they are. Finally, a team is staying in a conference they've been in for a long time. Youngstown, that was a big performance from Youngstown, man. They almost were able to pull off this upset. They had late leads in this game, too. So Youngstown, they were in this game right to the wire. It was tied in the final minute of the game. So I do think this does look like a flat spot for Youngstown, even though I still worry that they might get up for a game against Toledo, though. That's kind of my hesitation with that one. I like Toledo in this one, though. Although the odds makers are telling you Youngstown is actually the better of the two teams. Youngstown is probably one of the better teams in the Horizon League, as they have been the last couple of years. They've just never been able to win the conference tournament. That conference tournament is always chaos, dude. There are like too many rounds in it, and just you wind up with like one of the middle seeds basically winning that tournament all the time. So, I mean, do with that information what you will. I would lean to Toledo slightly in that one. I think the spot sets up a little bit better. I don't love it enough. One of Saab's plays is Valpo at Cleveland State. I agree with him on this one. I agree with Valpo. I couldn't quite get there with it, although the spot doesn't look good for Cleveland State. Cleveland State just went into this Sulphur Springs, West Virginia tournament, the Greenbrier tournament, whatever it was. Cleveland State first of all, they had a big game against Kent State, which is a rivalry of sorts in the state of Ohio, and they played them pretty tough. Kent State also probably one of the better teams in the MAC. I think it's, right now for me, it's between Kent State and Akron, although that seems to kind of always be the case. With maybe Miami, Ohio getting in the mix there too. Cleveland State played them to within 7, and then they turned around off that tough game, and they upset Radford as well. So Cleveland State put in really good performances as underdogs in that tournament there. And Cleveland State at this point looks better than they actually are. They put in a good performance against Loyola Chicago to open the season too. And Loyola looks like they're not that good this year. Cleveland State was a big underdog in that one too. So right now I think Cleveland State looks a lot better than they are. They're coming back home. They got Valpo, and then they have a revenge game against Kent State up next, who, as I mentioned, they just lost to in the Sulphur Springs tournament. And Kent State is, I think they consider them Kent State to be a bigger brother to them in the state of Ohio. So this does look like a sandwich spot. Valpo, I mean, yeah, they're coming off a win over Bryant, which is whatever. This is only going to be their second road game of the season, I should say. They lost the first one, but it was at Kentucky. So, I mean, I'm not going to really take a whole lot from that. Kentucky, obviously, way better than Valpo. Yeah, I agree with Valpo here. This one has not made my card. Cleveland State dropped from 4.5 to 2.5, although now it looks like 60% of the tickets, 69% of the cash coming back on Cleveland State. But I do think it's a bad spot for them. I think it's a sandwich spot. I'm assuming that Ken Baum here probably has Cleveland State as the better team, though. I mean, Valpo's not good. He does have Cleveland State as a fast-tempo team. He doesn't have them very high in the luck index. They have faced a somewhat difficult schedule. He has them really bad defensively, though. He's got Valpo actually only 6 ranking spots lower, but he has Valpo as the 3rd luckiest team in the entire nation, which that's something that kind of keeps me away from playing on a team, though. Like, when I see that, it does mean that team is overperforming a bit. So I'm going to stay away. Plus, I'm still mad at Valpo for changing their name from the Crusaders, because you can't talk about spreading Christianity anymore, man. Now they're the Beacons. Very, very gay. Beams of light. But yes, Saab, I agree with Valpo in that game. Not on my card, though. All right. Villanova and LaSalle. This is one of the Jeffrey games here. Philadelphia matchup here, though I believe he considers Villanova to not be a true Philadelphia school. I mean, LaSalle's going to get up for this because they consider themselves to be a little brother. Villanova's coming off a win over Duquesne, where Villanova was a 10.5-point favorite, and they won by 10. So not a whole lot to take away from that, although Duquesne looks pretty good this year to open the season, man. It seems like Duquesne is going to be one of the better teams in the, I believe they're in the A-10 as well. Villanova, pretty big win for Villanova, really, the way Duquesne has been playing. Now Villanova actually has to play their first true road game. This is the Big 5 Classic of Philadelphia here, but the home teams are hosting these, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Jeffrey, but this is at the John Glazer Arena, which I believe is LaSalle's home arena. So it will be the first true road game for Villanova, although, of course, it's in Philadelphia, so Villanova is going to probably get a lot of fans showing up for that game anyway. I think LaSalle is going to consider it to be a bigger deal, though. LaSalle is undefeated at home right now, although Villanova is going to be the best team they've faced so far. LaSalle coming off having to face Penn State, so they are facing 2 big games in a row. And LaSalle, actually, I was going to say I thought they covered this. They did not, though, because this was at LaSalle, so Penn State was only an 8.5-point favorite in this one. Game wasn't really ever in doubt, though, for Penn State. I mean, they had a big lead in this game. They were winning by 21 pretty late in the game, and then I think Penn State just took their foot off the gas and decided to just pack it in because they knew they were going to win. I'll probably lean to LaSalle in this one. I don't want to do it, but Villanova up to 12 now from 10. They're a 12-point favorite now. 83% of the tickets, 95% of the cash. Cash looks like it's coming in on Villanova. Again, I would probably take the points with LaSalle, though. It's a low total at 144. Villanova, they play slow, dude. And if they can control the pace here because they are the better team, they're going to want to play slow, which is not really conducive to covering double digits, especially on the road. Tight rims on that court. Are the rims not regulation? Like what? So you mean it's difficult to score on that court? It's a tight butthole, man. They got virgin baskets there, virgin rims at LaSalle. All right, next up, this is going to be an ugly one, man. We're going to take Bellarmine plus 27.5 against Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Yeah, I mean, I know how it looks. It looks real ugly. I mean, Notre Dame, I mean, they're a team that's, I would say, likely to not make the tournament the way that it looks right now. Ken Baum has them at 60th in the country. They have not faced a difficult schedule so far, 309th. He does have them very unlucky, though, at 346th in luck, so that sometimes worries me, but everything else seems to line up well for fading Notre Dame here, including the fact that Notre Dame plays really slow, 327th in tempo. They're one of the slower teams in all of the country. They're one of the 30-something slowest. they're 55th in defense, 67th in offense. So Notre Dame is better defensively than offensively. This is at Notre Dame, but of course the crux of this is going to be the spot. And Notre Dame is not in a good spot, man. But I don't even consider Notre Dame's schedule has not been difficult so far, except they did just play their biggest game of the season so far, and they went to Ohio State as 9.5-point underdogs. And I thought Villanova was not going to be that close in this game, and they really were. Notre Dame, did I say Villanova? I meant Notre Dame. Notre Dame was winning this game for more than half of the game. Like, once they got the lead in the first half, they had the lead deep into the second half, finally surrendered the lead, came back again, took the lead in the final 2 minutes of the game, and then fell just short. And again, this is against Ohio State, a Big Ten team. This is a big game for Notre Dame, dude. And they fell just short. It was a low-scoring game. Ohio State shot very poorly, 38% from the floor. So even though Notre Dame did out-rebound them by 8, but kind of an outlier of a bad shooting percentage from Ohio State in that one. Very, very low-scoring game that helped Notre Dame stay in the game. But Notre Dame is going to have a tendency to play a lot of low-scoring games here. Now they're coming off of that, and they come home and they face Bellarmine, which I don't think Notre Dame's really going to... Do you really think they're going to have a lot of focus on Bellarmine after Notre Dame had such a huge performance against Ohio State? I'm not seeing it. And then they have to turn around on Monday, and they got to play Kansas, who's a blue blood, a huge name. And this is the Players Era Festival. It's going to be in Las Vegas. So at the MGM Grand, I think. So Notre Dame's going to be I think they're going to be looking ahead to that, man. They know that after this game, they got to pack up and they got to fly out to Las Vegas for that big tournament where they got to play Kansas first and then Rutgers. So I think this is absolutely a sandwich spot. I think Notre Dame's favored by a few too many points in this one. Bellarmine, I know they're not good. They're in the A-Sun. They've at least had some testing so far. They've had road games against Georgia, although I know they got wiped out in that game. They played better against Kansas State, though, their other road game. Kansas State's more on the level of Notre Dame, I would say, though. Georgia is better than both of those teams. Kansas State is a fast-paced team as well, and Bellarmine was able to cover the 28.5 against Kansas State, although I think Notre Dame's probably slightly better than Kansas State, and Notre Dame's not laying as many points, but I think Kansas State was also laying too many points in that one. Bellarmine was able to cover in that one, although barely, as they lost by 27, but again, Kansas State plays faster. So Bellarmine, they are battle-tested here, and they're coming off a home loss to Wofford. So I think it's going to be good for Bellarmine to just leave home, leave campus, not even think about it. And maybe they even were looking ahead, man, because Notre Dame's a bigger game for them. This is a game against, I think Notre Dame's in the ACC in basketball, right? Yeah, they are. Even though Notre Dame's unaffiliated in football. They're like almost de facto ACC in football because they play a lot of the ACC teams. I don't know why they're not in the ACC. I kind of miss, I do really miss the old Big East days, though. Notre Dame was in the Big East when it was like really good back in the day with, powerhouse UConn, Syracuse, Pitt when they were really good with Dixon. Who else was in it? Georgetown when they were really good. Louisville was there as well. That was a ridiculous Big East. Boston College was better back then. They were in the Big East. That old Big East was a powerhouse conference, and that conference is no more. I'm reminiscing, but yes, I like Bellarmine in this one, plus the points. I think the line should probably be, Ken Bum has it more in the 25 range. Notre Dame did drop from 28 to 26 here. Hopefully the number doesn't matter, although, again, in basketball, every point does matter a little bit. But, you're in numbers that are not key numbers when you're getting up into numbers this high. But hopefully they'll stick within that number, though, and cover with all the numbers. 500 to 1. Wait, what are we talking about? If you want Notre Dame, what? What are we talking about? 35 to 1 is Bellarmine, I'm assuming, to win the game outright. I would still probably put a little bit on the money line, man, in that. I would put like 1% of the bet on the money line in that one just because that's what I do. Like, even on a huge underdog, I can't, like, if they happen to actually pull off the ludicrous upset, I want to say that I had something on the money line in it, you know what I mean? So I would probably still put 1% on the money line in that one. Notre Dame doesn't want to share the money. Oh, so I guess they don't have to pay as much money if they're not in a conference. All right, that's interesting. JC, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. 500 to 1s, I mean, I don't know what I don't know what that means, but as far as, if you're looking at the money line, if there's a money line on it, it would be I'm assuming it would be minus 5,000 on Notre Dame, if that sounds about right. So that's that's 1 to 50, and then 35 to 1 on Bellarmine. That's what the odds makers do. They have to make money, so they juice the lines. That's standard practice. That's how they make money. So if you're gonna try to beat them, you gotta overcome the juice, man. That's always the case in the money line market. You'll see a minus 500 favorite, and then the underdog in that game will only be plus 375 or something. That's just the way that it is, because they have to juice them basically 10%, but maybe sometimes a little bit more than that. All right. What else was I going to talk about next? I mean, VMI at Richmond. This is a Virginia game here. I don't have much to say about it. Richmond, not really tested yet. VMI probably considers Richmond to be a bigger brother in the state of Virginia, as Richmond's in the A10. They make the tournament sometimes. Richmond coming off beating William and Mary, but Richmond was a 9.5-point favorite. William and Mary also in Virginia. They showed up for that game. I think they consider themselves to be a little brother as well. They gave Richmond a fight, man. So Richmond, Richmond coming off a game that was too close for comfort, let's just say. So in a way, you'd expect them to be a little bit more focused after they got a scare. VMI, not a great team, although they seem to be actually improving a bit in the SoCon. I've found spots in conference play to play them in the SoCon, so maybe that'll happen again once we get into conference play. I expect them to show up here, VMI, because it is Richmond, so VMI is going to have that game probably circled as one of their bigger games on the schedule. The money is coming in on VMI after Richmond did go up from 12.5 to 13. 50% of the tickets, 91% of the cash on VMI. I'm not really going to disagree with it, even though I think it does look like almost a bounce-back spot for Richmond as well. But, VMI, I mean, they're coming off a loss to Jacksonville. They're probably going to get up for it. So that's what I got to say about that. Our friends at UMBC who did not cover for us the other day, they're going up against GW, George Washington. This is going to be a big game, I think, for maybe even both teams, because it's a Washington area game here. George Washington just smacked ODU. They're staying at home. UMBC is coming off that game where we had them and they didn't cover, and they're coming off, a game where they didn't play as well as they could have. I don't even know, dude. Oh, there it is. MD Baltimore Co. Yeah, thank you. Maryland, Baltimore County. George Washington's up from 23 to 24.5 here. I mean, I guess I would probably lean towards taking the points with UMBC, but I don't really have a strong opinion on that one. GW is one of the better teams in the A10, although they got to a point last year where they were way overrated because they'd won a bunch of early season games against a weak schedule, so I was looking to fade them at some points last year. But UMBC, coming off a very lackluster performance where they barely won as a big favorite, may have started looking ahead to this. I expect them to show up here. They probably consider themselves to be a little brother in that one too, so I guess do with that information what you will. Duquesne will be hosting Loyola, Maryland. Duquesne is in a spot where they took their first loss of the season, and I talk about that. When a team takes their first loss of the season, sometimes that will hang them over into the next game. That could be the case here, and that was a big game for them against Villanova. They stepped it up, even though Duquesne is not in the Philadelphia area. They're in the Pittsburgh area, but they still, I think they consider that to be a big brother, little brother Pennsylvania game. Duquesne put in a good performance against Villanova, lost by 10. Now they're coming off of that, and they got to face Loyola, Maryland. Looks like a bad spot to me for Duquesne to some extent. Loyola Maryland just played close at Fairfield, though, and Loyola Maryland was an underdog in that game, although only a 5.5. I think they will show up for this game against Duquesne, although they do have to face Kentucky in 2 days. Loyola Maryland does. I would probably take the points with Loyola Maryland. The money does look like it's hit Duquesne early, though, up from 11.5 to 14.5 with heavy juice. So if you do like Loyola Maryland, you could probably get plus 15 on it. And the total is fairly low at 149.5. Duquesne, they play somewhat fast, but they're kind of an oddity where they don't score very well. That's kind of been their MO over the last couple of years. Watching Duquesne was it was painful to watch Duquesne. The year that they made the tournament a couple of years ago, it was really, really painful to watch that Duquesne offense, man, in the A10 tournament. I was like, this is insane, dude. Even though I was kind of rooting for them just because Duquesne hadn't made the tournament for so long. I was like, it would be cool if they made the tournament. And they actually won a tournament game because teams like that, when they haven't been in the tournament for so long and they make the tournament, they get excited and it's like they're free rolling. They got nothing to lose, so they usually play well in the tournament. And Duquesne pulled off the outright upset against BYU, which I did not have that in my bracket. I thought BYU would get by them, but that did not happen. But yeah, Duquesne, that offense was just, that was one of the worst offenses that I've ever watched that year. Like watching them in the A10 tournament, I was like, oh my God. It was like having teeth pulled. Duquesne has gone over in all 4 of their games. Kind of surprises me. Again, they play fairly fast, but they just aren't a good offensive team. Loyola's been an under team. That's less surprising because they're not very good offensively, and I think they're a slower team. They're pretty slow, 318th in tempo. So Loyola is going to be facing a pacing mismatch in that one. Duquesne is going to try to speed them up, even though, again, it doesn't seem to help Duquesne score that much, although I guess they've gone over in a bunch of games this year. Saab has Mount St. Mary's here against Maryland. I agree this is basically a sandwich spot for Maryland or a letdown spot, but I have one huge concern with fading Maryland in this one. I looked at this one pretty hard, and it almost made my card. Maryland, they just went to Marquette, and they pulled off the outright upset. Big win for Maryland here, man. Marquette's the better team this year. Maryland, not as good as they were last year because they lost Queen and a couple of those other starters they had last year. Maryland were 8.5-point underdogs when this game went off, and they played a really good game, and they won the game outright. They had a big lead early, blew the lead, fell behind in the second half, and then they wound up retaking the lead and winning, retaking a double-digit lead, actually, and then winning. Marquette was really, really poor shooting in the game, though. 37% from the field, 28% from three. Maryland, 53% from the field. So this is definitely an outlier of a shooting game, especially on the Marquette side. They did not shoot well at all. This Marquette team, though, they're a little bit down, I think, from where they were the last couple of years. They don't have Kolek anymore. I don't really think Shaka Smart is good, man. I think he made that run with VCU when his havoc defense was unfamiliar to a lot of the opponents, but teams know what he's going to try to do. He just has not had success really since then. He's brought teams to the tournament a bunch of times, though. He's been good in the regular season a bunch of times, but I don't think he's that good of a coach. But that's beside the point here. Yeah, this win was a little bit misleading for Maryland because Marquette shot really poorly. And then after this game against a very weak Mount St. Mary's team was in the MAAC. Maryland has to face UNLV. UNLV, one of the, I would say, top several teams in the Mountain West. And then they do have Gonzaga coming up right after that. And these are in some tournament. This is the Player Era Festival that I mentioned earlier at the MGM Grand. So Maryland's going to be in that in a few days, basically, 5 days from now. So yes, it is basically a look-ahead spot too. So yes, this is a sandwich spot. For Mount St. Mary's, they're coming off a cover for us. They played pretty well at Cincinnati, so that is one concern for me that Mount St. Mary's, they were 25.5-point underdogs in this one, and they lost by 17. They played pretty well for us if you had this one with me against Cincinnati. Cincinnati was terrible shooting in the game, especially 21% from three, so that does make it look like a little bit of an outlier. Cincinnati did out-rebound Mount St. Mary's. I believe Marquette out-rebounded Maryland in their game, too. I worry about taking Mount St. Mary's here. Actually, I have two major concerns with playing Mount St. Mary's here. One is they're coming off this big game, dude. So they're going to have to put in a big effort 2 games in a row as a big underdog. In this game, Mount St. Mary's was winning this game for almost the entire first half and then into the second half. And then they fell short, but then it wasn't close towards the end of the game. They were down 9 at the closest with 5 minutes left, but still, they put in a big effort in this one, man, and led pretty deep into the game. So I do worry about that. But the other thing I'm very concerned about is Maryland lost their best player for the entire season. Pharrell Payne. He's Maryland's best player, dude. He's their best scorer, and I think he was leading the team in rebounds, too. Let me see. Yeah, Pharrell Payne. He's leading the team in points and rebounds per game. He's injured for the entire season now. He had a bad leg injury in the game against Marquette, and you know what I always say. Star player gets injured, the team usually steps it up for that one game, the first game without him. I mean, it's possible that they don't because they are still coming off a huge win, and they do have big games up next. But I worry about it, man, because that is a phenomenon. I think they're going to step up and play a little bit better that first game without him because they know they basically have to because they lost their best player. So that's what worries me about Mount St. Mary's in this one. I'll still give out a lean that way. I would still probably take the points here, but that one's not going to make my card. Maryland up from 19.5 to 19.5 with juice here. Yeah, I'm leaving that one alone personally. I hope you get a win on that one, Saab, but I am worried about those couple of things. I moved the line on the total just by talking about it briefly. I don't really do the totals, so which total went down? The Duquesne game? Mr. Pinsey, what's up? Thanks for hanging out, man. I apologize for going early. I'm not totally consistent with when I go live here. The anniversary of Len Bias, you mean his death? Oh, man. Dude, the Celtics have had such, bad luck. It's like God was working against the Celtics, dude, all throughout my childhood. I, don't really remember the Celtics, them being, such a good team for the first. I mean, obviously, I wasn't alive for most of it. My dad's going to remember basically all of it. My dad grew up through, a lot of the Bill Russell years and stuff, and then Celtics were also quite good in the 70s, the Dave Cowens years and whatever, and then the 80s, of course, with Bird, McHale, Parrish. I was a kid, and then I got to see, the late end of that, sort of, slightly after their prime. I got to kind of see that, so I kind of missed that. I was there for, when Detroit basically came in and stopped the Celtics. I was really young at that point, but I started rooting for the Bulls just because the Celtics dynasty ended against Detroit, and because Detroit were just, a bunch of thugs. It was Isaiah Thomas was kind of the mob boss of the team, instructing his team to injure opponents, and Bill Laimbeer was the goon. Hated that guy. Absolutely hated Laimbeer. I loved it when he pissed Parrish off so much that Parrish punched him or whatever. That fight there. Parrish was not a guy that would usually do that, and Laimbeer pissed him off to that extent where Parrish lost his cool. The Chief. Dude, I like Parrish. If you watch all these Celtics documentaries, Parrish says such funny shit, dude. I think he's hilarious, dude. I like him a lot. I like McHale a lot too, and of course I don't like Bird as a guy. I think Bird is the least good guy of those three. Bird. He was known for shit talking on the court to an extreme degree, but. Of course, you guys know. He basically told me to f off when I tried to get his autograph when I was 11 or whatever. I think he was kind of he was probably trying to get to the locker room because he was the coach of the Pacers at the time. It was at a summer league game, but yeah, I don't know. I've met Parrish and McHale too, but I was a kid. I don't exactly remember it, but. That was the autograph I was trying to get was on the hat that I got both of them to autograph. So it's come on, Bird. You got to add your autograph. I have a hat with Parrish, McHale, Dennis Johnson, ML Carr, all these guys from that era there. Bird, nah, F off, kid. I'm not going to sign this. All right, well, thank you. But yes, I like McHale too if you watch the interviews with him. And, Danny Ainge is kind of funny, too. Everybody who was not like a fan of the Celtics and or on another team besides the Celtics, hated Ainge because he was like he was the dude that would actually like get into like scrums and whatever. Like he was like the pest. He was like the Brad Marchand of the Celtics back then. So I appreciate that. I don't know if I appreciate Ainge as a GM of the team though. Didn't appreciate some of the things he did, but yeah, Len Bias, dude. I mean, that's one of the biggest, that is the biggest what if in basketball history, dude. Len Bias went to Maryland, which may be part of the reason why we're talking about it too. A lot of coincidences today. Bias went to Maryland, and then the Celtics drafted him really high in the draft. Might have been first overall, I forget, but he was supposed to be he was going to be like the next guy to come in after Bird and be the next leader of the team. He was going to get to play with Bird for a few years. And of course, he died of like a cocaine overdose or whatever before he could even play for the Celtics while he was still at Maryland, like in his apartment or whatever. Ridiculous. Terrible. That's the biggest what if ever. And then the Celtics had like 2 decades. Like, I just remember the Celtics being losers because that happened. And then, Bird retired, McHale retired. Parrish kept playing, and I think he went to, where did he go after the Celtics? He went to some other team. I forget where he went. I can't remember. And I think McHale actually might have gone to Minnesota. Is that right? Because I know he wound up in their office, but I think he actually played for the T-Wolves at the very end of his career. Maybe I'm misremembering that. But he was part of the Garnett deal that sent Garnett to the Celtics, I think. I think McHale was in the office there. There were some dealings there. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, and then, of course, when I was growing up in the 90s, so we don't have Len Bias. The Celtics are, kind of in that rut. But then the Celtics got Reggie Lewis, and he was going to be the next guy. I think Reggie Lewis was going to be a star, dude. And then he died because his heart gave out. Like, he collapsed on the court, and then he died not that long after that. And he was using cocaine as well. Like, that seems to go, under the rug. Like, people don't mention that, but he was. So the Celtics had that happen to basically 2 guys that were going to be, the next star for the team. It's ridiculous, dude. By the way, Reggie Lewis, I have his autograph on that hat, too. So that's a crazy one there. Man. So, yeah, just a couple of decades of just, man. And then Rick Pitino comes in, and he basically tells Red Auerbach that he's not going to control the team anymore. And Rick Pitino trades Chauncey Billups away after the Celtics had him for 8 games. One of the best draft picks that the Celtics had. And no, let's just trade him to the Pistons. What are you doing, dude? I think it was the Pistons at that point. Was it? Was it the Pistons at that point? I forget. I remember him being on the Pistons. I think he might have been on Denver, too. I don't even remember. Whatever it was. But they traded him away. I'm like, what are you doing, man? So, those 3 guys, imagine if those 3 guys all had long careers with the Celtics. The Celtics would probably have more championships than they do. And I think they still have the most because of the Russell era. But, yeah. But I'm going through all the Celtics history right now as the Celtics. I watch too many sports documentaries, man. But, yeah, I mean, bad times. And then the Celtics championship that I remember was 2008. I don't remember the Celtics winning it in 87 or whatever, even though I was alive, or 86 is the last time they won. I forget. I think it was 87, whatever it was. I don't remember. I don't remember it because I was too young. And then the one that I actually remember is 2008. After going through my whole life with the Celtics being a bad team and a losing team, finally it coalesced. They finally added Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen to go along with Paul Pierce. And I'm like, hell yeah. Finally, they have a complete team with the big 3. And then Ray Allen basically got into some fights with those guys and left the team and went to Miami as a trader, joined the LeBron Miami BS, that team that I hated. And I think Ray Allen won at least 1 championship over there. Whatever. Although I guess Ray Allen, I guess those guys have made up though. Allen and I don't know. I don't remember which guy Allen had the biggest problem with. If it was KG or Pierce, I don't remember. And there was a point where, dude, the Celtics almost lost another star player because if you remember, Paul Pierce got stabbed at a nightclub. like, I don't know, several years into his career. He got stabbed like 13 times in a weird nightclub incident, and he survived it. Like, that was the Celtics almost lost another one of their star players. It's insane, dude. Yeah, crazy. I don't think any team has had that many insane things happen to, like, their absolute best player on the roster. All right, let's finish this off, man. What other games that I really want to talk about here? I don't know, man. I mean, Merrimack against Maine. Merrimack just had a nice win over BU, which I think Merrimack probably considers that to be a big brother, little brother situation. Could be a letdown spot here, even though they're coming back home. Maine is still looking for their first win of the season after Maine actually put up a fight last year in their conference in the American East or whatever, and I was rooting for them to win and get into the tournament. It didn't happen. Merrimack does have Florida up next as well, so it makes it kind of a sandwich spot. They're kind of a look-ahead spot. Merrimack just isn't really that good either. Do you trust them to cover as a favorite? I mean, I don't really. They're up from 5.5 to 6.5 with an unbelievably low total in this game of 129. Merrimack, this team just doesn't score a lot, so I don't trust them to cover a favorite spread like that, especially in a spot like that. So I would take the points with Maine in that one. That's just, another thing there. Oh, Dirty Sock, thank you, sir. The early best bets. Well, the best bets segment is all over the place here. I've given out one play so far in UConn minus the points, and I got 4 more college basketball plays and 1 NBA, and that's it. You're flying to another non-betting state. That sucks. Yes, safe travels, sir. We got 2 JCs. We got JC, and then Jeffrey is also JC. I'm gonna continue to distinguish them by calling JC, and Jeffrey is Jeffrey. All right. Dayton and Marquette is a good game, I think. Dayton's still a pretty decent team. Marquette is obviously the better of the two teams, though. Marquette coming off that ugly home loss, where Marquette, as I pointed out, they shot really, really poorly from the field. So they had pretty much an outlier of a game here, but I think both teams are going to refocus here after lackluster games because Dayton didn't play that well against Bethune-Cookman either, and we're probably looking ahead. So I'm expecting both teams to actually show up with focus here. Marquette may be able to control the pace here because they are at home. They're up from 4.5 to 5 here. Marquette plays fast and Dayton plays slow, even though they're called the Flyers. They don't fly. They play slow. So Marquette is still the better team here, and if they're able to control the pace, I kind of lean that way. Even though Marquette's coming off the bigger game, I think both teams are coming off ugly performances where they're going to want to bounce back, although the market read is saying to take the points with Dayton. I don't necessarily agree, though. 60% of tickets, only 51% of the cash on Marquette. We'll see what happens in that game, but yeah, I don't love that. You're back again. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Cashing out. Oh, no. The cash out, they never give you enough money back, dude. That's the problem with the cash out. Like they want you to do it because they don't give you good enough money back on it. South Florida at Oklahoma State here. This is an interesting matchup. South Florida, I thought they would do more poorly in this Kennesaw game than they did because it was their first true road game. Kennesaw is not that bad, and I thought this might be a look-ahead spot to Oklahoma State because it is a Big 12 team. But South Florida was able to win and score over 100 points again. I think the public might be looking towards South Florida here because Oklahoma State's been bad for a while now. South Florida definitely has overperformed the last couple of years. Like South Florida just seems to they start doing really well and overperforming in conference play, and I'm like, the wheels are going to fall off at some point, man. And it's happened. I mean, South Florida still hasn't made the tournament those years. The last time I remember South Florida making the tournament was way back in like 2010 maybe. It was the Dunk City year where Gulf Coast upset Georgetown, I'm pretty sure, because I had South Florida getting to the Sweet 16 in my bracket that year, I'm pretty sure, and they did. Because I think I had both of those upsets correct. South Florida over Cal, I want to say. Although South Florida actually might have been favored in that game. I think it was close in the 5-12 matchup after South Florida won one of the play-in games, I think. And then I had Ohio pulling off an upset over, who the hell was it? I don't even remember in that tournament there. It was a game where Ohio was a 13 seed and they were only like a 4-point dog. And I'm like, man, like Ohio was dangerous. I had South Florida getting to the Sweet 16 in my bracket, but they actually didn't. I think Ohio beat them and got to the Sweet 16 as a 13 seed back then. But I do remember that I'm just saying that because that's the last time I remember South Florida being in the tournament, me with my tournament autism. But I think South Florida is going to look better than they are so far because they really haven't played very many good teams, but they keep putting up a lot of high point totals. Oklahoma State's going to be the best team they've faced so far, though. But, yeah, I mean, Oklahoma State, they're not exactly battle-tested either, but they did beat Texas A&M. Texas A&M a little bit down this year, but that's a good win, at least for Oklahoma State. Maybe Oklahoma State's a little bit on the rise again here in basketball. I'm going to lean to Oklahoma State in this one. They're down from 5.5 to 5. 81% of tickets, 92% of the cash on them, though. Again, I think the public's just going to be enamored with South Florida's high-scoring ways and probably overlook Oklahoma State a little bit here. That's kind of the way that I look at this one. Ken Bum has Oklahoma State 54th in the country, so he actually has them playing pretty well right now. They're interestingly a good defensive team, but also a very fast-paced team at 5th in the country in pace, which South Florida, they also play fast, though, so they won't be thrown out of their element there. South Florida, 18th in the country in tempo, so maybe an over is worth a look in that game, too. The total's all the way up to 180. I mean, that is an incredibly high total, but that total might dissuade the public from wanting to even go anywhere near that total, but the total's high for a reason, so it might actually get there to the over. Maine 3-1 to the under for Maine so far. Yeah, I mean that is an extremely low total, although it's low for a reason. I mean I'm not really going to disagree with an under in that one, but I mean I think it's going to be a real ugly game. But sometimes those those unders that are that low, it gets a little bit. It gets a little bit dicey if it's a close game because it can be a close game when it's that low of a total. At the end, you can see intentional fouls can cause that thing to go over. I would probably prefer an under in the first half of that game if I was going to deal with it, even though you're probably going to get an even lower total on that, though. Yes, sir. All right. Next up, Saab. Saab and I are both on this one. I think we're going to take Kansas City. UMKC is what they used to be called. Missouri, Kansas City, but now they're just called Kansas City because the Kansas City, Missouri considers themselves to be the Kansas City. I guess apologies to Kansas City, Kansas, I guess, because I think there's one on both sides of the border. We're going to do it. I'll agree with Saab on this one. We'll take the points with Kansas City at TCU. TCU, I mean, I think they've overperformed a bit this year. I mean, this is still the TCU team that lost to New Orleans in their first game, remember? And New Orleans, we had a nice fade of them last night because I think New Orleans has been overperforming. TCU, that was an ugly loss. We went with TCU coming off that to bounce back, and they clobbered St. Francis for us. That was a win for us, but St. Francis is not very good. And then TCU beat Lamar, and they only beat them by 13 points. TCU did not cover, and that one is 18.5-point favorites. Lamar is one of the better Southland Conference teams and a little brother in the state of Texas, but so this has not been an impressive run for TCU so far, but now TCU is coming off their biggest game of the season by far against Michigan at home, and TCU took Michigan to the limit, dude. TCU were 7.5-point favorites in this one, and TCU, they had chances to win this game. TCU was winning the game throughout most of the first half, had the lead for a large extent in the second half as well, and they were still winning the game with 11:45 left. They were up 6, and then they didn't score for a period of 4.5 minutes, TCU didn't score. I mentioned that when I talked about Michigan earlier. But yeah, TCU, after having that lead, they just went silent and then fell behind, and then Michigan was able to escape with the win, although TCU was still within 1 possession, 2 points in the final minute. TCU went all out, and they almost beat a team that's ranked in the top 10 in Michigan. Now they're coming off of that, and they got to play this Kansas City team. I mean, how do you possibly get up off the mat after that, staying at home, and then you play Kansas City, really? And then after this, they get a huge break, and then they're going to have to come back during, I guess, the holiday season, basically, and they're going to have to play Florida after that huge break, which is going to be, I don't even know what this game is. It's some neutral site game coming up. Let me see, when is this? This is basically when they come back from one of these breaks. It's going to be in San Diego at the Jenny Craig Pavilion. So, hey, you get to lose weight by playing basketball, all right? This is at the Rady Children's Invitational in San Diego. Take from that what you want to, I guess. But that will be a big game against Florida. I know it's not for a while, but so the look-ahead component, there might not be a huge look-ahead component there, but still, coming off that really, really great performance from TCU, I think they're going to fall flat in this one, and they're probably laying too many points. Kansas City, they're actually in Texas right now because they just played in Texas at UT Austin, and they did play pretty well. They covered, I think. Yes, 31.5-point underdogs. They only lost by 16 in a low-scoring game. So, I mean, you could make the argument that, well, Kansas City's going to fall flat after that. I don't really think so. I mean, they were getting blown out in the late part of this game. They were down 20. I mean, the game was over, so it's not like they took Texas to the wire or did anything remotely like what TCU just did. Kansas City, they'll get up for it, and again, they're already in the state of Texas, so this travel spot isn't that bad for them. And they're a little bit battle-tested by having that road game against Texas, so yeah, I mean, I think Kansas City will show up enough to get within this huge number here. And TCU, they have not been covering big numbers as a favorite, except for that one against St. Francis. So, and they were in a good bounce back spot in that one, and they're certainly not here. TCU's already dropped from 25 to 24. I think 24 is the best you can do on this. TCU is still not that great. I mean, Ken Pom has them at 86th in the country. He has them kind of a mid-tempo team. He does have them very unlucky so far, though, which I did point out. It's because they lost that game against New Orleans, basically. That's why they're considered to be unlucky. They're better defensively than offensively, and that's also what you want when you're looking to fade a team as a huge favorite. You want them to be more of a defense-oriented team, and TCU is right now. As far as Kansas City is concerned, yes, they're bad, 324th in the country, really bad, and not good defensively, but tempo-wise, they won't be thrown off by this. They also play kind of a mid-tempo game. And again, they face a pretty difficult schedule so far, 85th. So even though they are higher in the luck index, we're still going to go with it. It's a bad spot for TCU. So we will do that one. Yes, Saab, yes, sir. UConn is already 7.5. And Pinnacle is a sharp book, by the way. So if UConn's already through the key number of 7 at Pinnacle, that's a good indicator there. But yeah, 7.5, that is... Dude, I hate how much these college basketball games move because you have to act like so quickly. It's almost like you have to do it overnight or else you miss the best number. It's crazy. Doing it in the morning should be good enough, but yeah, I mean, if you like it, like, yeah, that sucks too because I gave that out like close to the beginning of the show because I give these out in chronological order because at least hopefully the earlier games are going to be the ones that are going to move more significantly earlier in the day, like because the game is closer to being at the start time. I don't know, man, but yeah, that does suck. Lipscomb at Belmont is a Tennessee battle here, and at this point, I don't even know which one of these teams considers themselves to be a bigger or little brother. Lipscomb has made the tournament, I think, twice over the last few years, so maybe Belmont comes into this with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because Belmont made that nice run. They had like a couple of different tournament runs, not tournament runs, but runs to getting into the tournament for a while, not too long ago. Lipscomb, they finally got their first win of the season, though, beating whoever this is, Bryan, Tennessee. Okay, some non-Division I team, but at least that can give them some momentum. You get that monkey off your back, whatever. Now you can just move forward. But Lipscomb looks like they're going to be down this year, dude. I mean, this is not a good start to the season for them. Belmont is undefeated. They haven't really faced anybody good either, though. So Belmont is pretty untested so far, but they are staying at home. They may consider themselves to be a little brother right now, but they are actually the better team right now. Belmont is actually up from a 12.5 to 13.5 point favorite here. This is also kind of weird because this is an old Atlantic Sun rivalry. I think both of these teams used to be in the A-Sun, and Lipscomb is still there, but Belmont moved to the Missouri Valley. Although maybe Lipscomb plays with a chip on their shoulder against Belmont for that reason, because Belmont moved up to the Missouri Valley Conference, where a lot of those teams from the Missouri Valley have moved up higher than that, like Creighton and Wichita. And I think Drake is still in that conference right now and may move up at some point. The pros, yeah, they bet early for sure. Like the pros, not even just in Vegas, but online. The pros are just getting on these early, man. Jackson State on your schedule, on whose schedule? Did I switch to Action Network? Oops. Yes, Jackson State is going to be one of my plays. Yes. We got two games left here that I plays on. Alabama at Illinois. Well, this is not actually at Illinois. This is actually at the United Center, the Bulls Arena, which is in Chicago. It's still a semi-home game for Illinois. The crowd's going to be there for Illinois. And that's what we're going with in this one. I actually think Illinois is being shortchanged in the market here at 3.5. I think this line is too low. It's already up from 2 to 3.5, although it looks like some of the money's coming back on Alabama, but I do not agree with that. 61% of tickets, 92% of the cash coming in on Alabama. I'm going to lay it with Illinois here, man. We're going to go back to the well here, I guess, because I did give out Illinois not that long ago, and they covered the better numbers and pushed the worst number the last time we had Illinois against Texas Tech. But Alabama's ranked 11th right now. Illinois is ranked 8th, and if you look at KenPom, his rankings, I think those rankings have a lot to do with last year's perception, because Alabama's been so good for so long, but they're not as good this year. KenPom has them 21st in the country, and he has Illinois 5th. So he actually has Illinois somewhat considerably better than Alabama here. So he actually is telling you these rankings are a bit off, especially on the Alabama side. They're just being a bit overrated based on last year. And Illinois, I think, is still being kind of underrated because they weren't as good as Alabama was. Like, people just remember what they saw last, and they know Alabama scores a lot, although so does Illinois. By the way, Alabama is 4th in tempo this year. That's not really surprising. They're fast-paced. So is Illinois, but Illinois a little bit less fast. It's 69th. I know Alabama's lower in the luck index. I'm just going to kind of ignore that here. I know Illinois faces the less difficult schedule, but both teams have been somewhat battle-tested so far. KenPom has Alabama actually worse offensively and defensively than Illinois right now. He has Alabama 53rd in defense, which is not good. They're giving up a lot of points. He has Illinois 15th. So Illinois has been very well-rounded so far and 4th in offense. And you think of Alabama as this great offensive team, and they're still very good, but 11th. So he's got Illinois actually better on both sides of the ball and significantly better defensively. So I do like that. You're not laying a ton with them. And I don't like the spot for Alabama, as they're coming off a huge couple of games. They played St. John's, got the huge win in the basically road game at Madison Square Garden. I faded them off of that game, but that was a huge game against Purdue, and Alabama didn't get the job done. So you might argue, well, they'll bounce back after that, but I actually don't think so. I think this is just a difficult run of games, man, and now they have to travel again up into the Chicago area, into Chicago. It's a difficult spot for them, man. Having to put up an effort this many games in a row. So I think having the great strength of schedule, I think, can be a drawback. And for Illinois, they came off that big win over Texas Tech. And then I gave out a fade of Illinois in their last game, too, against Colgate. So they're coming off a much, much easier game, and they're staying in their home area. So this sets up way better to me for Illinois, man. Illinois is just staying in the Chicago area and coming off a very easy win over Colgate where they didn't have to put in a full effort. And I told you I didn't think they would. I thought they would just, not go full throttle in that game, which was part of the handicap there on taking Colgate. It was a sandwich spot. So I think Illinois sets up a lot better in this one, and they're being undervalued in the market. So we're going to lay the points with Illinois in that game. So I'll give you a play on both games there. Oh, on ESPN. Well, I gave it away, but that's the next game I'm talking about. Anna, thanks for hanging out again. You don't have the balls to play versus Auburn? Okay. Well, maybe I'll change your mind. We're going to do it. On the show, we're going to do it. This is my last play. We're going to take Jackson State plus 30.5 against Auburn. 22nd in the country. I mean, Auburn, first of all, they're not as good as they were last year. Yeah, they're still good. Ken Bum has them at 29th, so he's got them a little bit lower ranked than what the rankings makers are telling you. They're not like the powerhouse that they were last year, man. They lost a lot of those players. They got a new coach this year. They also have not faced a very difficult schedule yet, whereas, by the way, Jackson State, the last 2 years, Jackson State has faced the most difficult schedule in non-conference play out of any team between last year and this year. And this year, they have the third most difficult strength of schedule. So he has them fairly low in the luck index as well. They play a mid-tempo, although I think Auburn somewhat does as well. I think Auburn is a little bit slower, but that's fine as well, because if Auburn's a little bit slower, that also means it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to cover a huge number here. Jackson State, yeah, again, I mean, they battle test themselves like crazy, dude. So I mentioned that last year. Like, Jackson State, it was one of the craziest things I'd ever seen. Jackson State had an unbelievably difficult out-of-conference schedule last year at the beginning of the season, and they were like 0-10 going into conference play. And I was like, they're going to do really well in conference play. And you're going to be looking at an 0-10 team. It's going to be favored against a bunch of these teams. So I think I did give them out as a play a couple of times last year. There were some spots where they were really undervalued because their record was so hideous. But I was like, dude, this team is so battle-tested. They're at least one of the better SWAC teams. I mean, the SWAC is terrible, but Jackson State's at least decent for a SWAC team. Speaking of the SWAC, by the way, I should have considered giving out Southern as a play last night. They actually took Washington to overtime last night. Washington was coming off a very satisfying rivalry win over Washington State, and they almost lost last night to Southern. I should have considered that because Southern has actually been stepping up in class pretty well this year. So my mistake there. But anyway, Jackson State, dude, this team, yeah, I mean, again, they play unbelievably strong out of conference schedules. I don't know how it happens, but look at their schedule so far this year. I know they got blown out in these games, but they played on the road against Illinois and Louisville. And then they did play a little bit better against Louisiana Tech, although they still lost the game, but it was a more competitive game. But this has not been an easy schedule at all. So at the very least, you can say that they're battle tested. And I know they did not get within this number against either Illinois or Louisville, but those teams both play fast. Illinois 69th in the country. Louisville 26th in tempo. So for Jackson State, this is going to be a little bit of a reprieve from that because Auburn, first of all, Auburn's not as good as either of those teams, but also Auburn plays slower than both those teams. And the spot for Auburn, I mean, it's just bad, dude. Auburn just almost beat Houston the other day. I mean, you know this was a massive game for Auburn. This game was in Birmingham, Alabama to Birmingham. I'm gonna say it like a Brit. This game was crazy, dude. Auburn almost pulled off the win over Houston, number one in the country, even though Houston had the lead basically the whole game. It was one of these Houston grinding games, and then Auburn just kind of stayed within it the whole time, and they got to within 1 point in the final minute, man, and still fell short. This is a huge game for Auburn. I mean, you gotta fade Auburn off of that. And Houston is very physical. They will punish you. So coming off of a game against Houston, teams do not do well typically when they just face Houston because they always step up their effort and Houston punishes you physically. Now they got to face Jackson State. Like, do you really think they're going to pay that much attention to Jackson State? Jackson State, by the way, they're in Mississippi, unfortunately, not in Alabama, but still. I mean, I don't know if they consider themselves to be a little brother, but you know they're gonna come with some effort here because it is against Auburn. I mean, we know that Auburn's good, and for Auburn, they got to face Oregon and Michigan, and then NC State, and then Arizona, all up after this. So this is a sandwich spot. I mean, which one of these teams are they going to overlook out of all those teams? Yeah, it's going to be Jackson State. I mean, this is sandwiched in between games against all better teams. They play Oregon next, which is in Las Vegas in the Player Era Festival. That one's at the Michelob Ultra Arena. I don't even know where the hell that is. So not at the MGM Grand, but Auburn's got that to look ahead to. We're going to do it. We're going to take Jackson State to come within this number. I think they can do it. The number seems to be moving in that direction. It's down from 31.5 to 29.5. Now, hopefully there's not much of a difference there. The total's not that high in the 150s, so that's not horrible either for taking a huge amount of points. We're doing it. Yeah, and that's the final play. And for the other one, for UMKC, by the way, it's a pretty low total as well, and that one at 151. So taking, I think I already pointed that out, but taking those big numbers, less of a concern when the total is not that high. I forget what it was for Bellarmine's game. Bellarmine's is even lower at 149.5, so I'm all right with all of those. There you go. Auburn's gone over in every game. I mean, most of Auburn's games have been against cupcakes, though. So these early season totals, I just don't think that you can read anything into these games. Like, I mean, these teams are playing in these total mismatch games, so I don't know. Although, of course, this is one too. But, I mean, I just think Auburn is not going to be able to score that much coming off of that game against Houston. That's just a punishing game and a deflating way to lose that game. So, I don't know. I don't see Auburn being able to do it, man, to be able to win by that margin here. And then, I mean, Arkansas State having to go to St. Mary's. It's an interesting game. Both of these teams have been kind of fun to watch recently, although St. Mary's plays really, really slow. And they're coming off just massacring North Texas, 80-49. I mean, you're going to be a little bit high after a win like that, although Arkansas State having to go to the Pacific Coast for the first time this year, that's not that easy to do either. So I'm going to stay away, but it's an interesting one. And I think it's a contrast of styles because Arkansas State likes to play really fast. Ken Bum also has them as the number one team in luck so far. And St. Mary's plays really, really slow. So it's going to be a huge pacing collision here. But if you want to ask the slow team to lay like 20-something points here, I don't love that idea either. With a total of 147.5, St. Mary's is up to 20.5. I just figured I'd mention it might be one of the more fun games to watch, though, to see what happens with the pacing contrast there. What do you mean? The odds makers versus the team? I mean, I just don't really, I don't know. I don't think there's a whole lot to take away from games that are just games that are mismatches that get totally out of control. But I just think that spot is horrible for Auburn. And I'm guessing that coming off of the game they just came off of, they're not going to score as much as they have in those other games. Washington State and Southern Utah. I will just say Washington State is coming off that big rivalry game against Washington. They fell short. They didn't come close to winning, though, so I don't know. But they still might overlook Southern Utah. And Washington State does have to face Chaminade. They have to go to Hawaii after this. There's your Chaminade, baby. That's going to be in Maui. I think Chaminade hosts that thing because they're in Maui. So there's our boys, Chaminade, Division II, out there. So that's when that tournament is happening. So it could be a little bit of a sandwich spot for Washington State here. Southern Utah just got totally embarrassed against Gonzaga. I know Gonzaga's good, but losing by 72 points? I mean, I thought that would be more of a competitive performance for Southern Utah. That is crazy. And now Washington State's only laying 12.5 here. I would probably take the points with Southern Utah. I mean, nobody's going to want to touch that after they lost by 72. Who's going to want to do that? They lose by 72, and now they have to come within 12. It seems almost impossible. Washington State's much worse than Gonzaga, though. 50% of tickets, 99% of the cash on Southern Utah. I would lean that way, but, I mean, I'm not going to do anything with that game. The Vegas special, yeah. It's the bailout game because it's the last game of the schedule. Yeah, the public will come out and lay the points. I agree with that. If the public is playing college basketball today, yeah, which they might be because the football games are pretty ugly. There are a couple of big college basketball games. It's a Wednesday, so yeah, the public might be looking at some college basketball today. All right, NHL. We have Edmonton at Washington. Can't believe we're already an hour and a half in. I have only talked about college basketball. Man, it's a good thing I started early. I only have one more play, too, and it's in NBA. Edmonton coming off an ugly, ugly game against Buffalo, losing 5-1. So that kind of leads me to believe that it looks like it would be kind of a bounce-back spot here. I mean, Edmonton, it was a bad spot for them. They were coming off a nice overtime win against Carolina. That's a big win. I just think we're not focused against Buffalo. Maybe even looking ahead to Washington a little bit. So I do expect Edmonton to show up in this game. Washington probably also will. I mean, they did just end a little bit of a loss streak for themselves. They beat LA. I don't think they're going to be like overconfident after beating LA 2-1. I expect focus from Washington here as well. I think, yeah, the market read early is on Washington. They're up from -113 to -122. 71% of the cash on them, 51% of tickets on Edmonton. So the money is, the money's saying Washington here. I don't have a strong opinion on it at all, though. You know, like Edmonton, what do they have next? I didn't even really look. I'm a great handicapper, obviously. I put more weight into what just happened, though. I mean, they're playing Tampa Bay tomorrow. Is that really a huge deal? I don't think so, but I don't know. I mean, Tampa Bay has been pretty mediocre. I don't really see that as a look ahead. I don't have a strong opinion on this. The market says Washington. I think both teams should show up for it. No result in this game would really surprise me. Oilers Chicken Hustler. She's done Playboy, dude. She's not going to move over to one of the other. Hustler is too crude for her, man. She's classy. She's a Playboy model. That's her thing. Calgary at Buffalo. Calgary, I mean, their result last night was pretty misleading. I know I mentioned I leaned to Calgary in this game. I know they're on a back-to-back, but I actually kind of like Calgary in this game against Buffalo. Calgary did at least have a few days off prior to last night. I'm assuming it won't be Wolf in net tonight, though it'll be Cooley, which, yeah, you know, I know. They've lost every game with him in net this year, but Calgary, I mean, they just suck generally, but this 5-2 loss was not what it looked like yesterday. I mean, Calgary, they got outshot slightly, but look at the physicality in this game. Calgary out-physicaled Chicago 43-13 in hits. I've never seen a disparity like that. And they lost the game 5-2, and they out-face-offed Chicago fairly significantly, too, with 56% of the face-offs going in Calgary's direction. Doesn't look like a game they should have lost 5-2. One concern I would have with Calgary tonight, though, is it is a back-to-back, and this was a physical game. I mean, 60-plus penalty minutes from both sides. You know there was a lot of fighting in this game. The game got a little bit out of hand, let's say. There's not really a rivalry between Calgary and Chicago. But this result was misleading, and there was also an empty net for Bedard, who actually got a hat trick on the empty net goal at the end. But the game was not quite what it looked like on the scoreboard there. And for Buffalo, of course, as I just mentioned, they're coming off not only beating Edmonton 5-1 in their last game, but they also beat Detroit in overtime the game before that. And Edmonton was in a return home. I mean, they beat Edmonton in a return home spot. Buffalo was in the return home spot in that one. So that's crazy that they were able to do that in that difficult of a spot. Buffalo's got to be in a letdown spot here, man. So I would lean to Calgary in this one. I know they're on the back-to-back, but that's what I would do here. Money seems to agree with it. 64% of tickets, only 63% of the cash on Buffalo. They're down from -165 to -150. I wouldn't disagree with an over here either. Calgary, I mean, the total's up from 6 to 6, juice to the over. I'm not really going to disagree with it. Both teams, I mean, very questionable goaltending in games where they, you know, they're coming off games where they like exerted themselves, let's say. So, yeah, I mean, the over does make sense to me in that game as well. But I do like the Calgary side. It's just I don't know if I can quite do it because of how brutal that game was last night. Even though it was a misleading loss on the scoreboard. Carolina at Minnesota. Carolina is definitely the better of these two teams. Carolina did just beat Boston, though, on the road. My Bruins, after taking Edmonton to overtime the game before that. Possible Carolina does kind of overlook Minnesota. I mean, Boston's kind of a big win. It was a conference win. Boston was pretty hot coming into that game. Carolina's got Winnipeg up in 2 days. They might not totally pay attention to this Minnesota team that is playing at a mediocre level, which was more expected here. But Minnesota's coming off an overtime win over Vegas, so I don't really want to deal with Minnesota here either in what could be a bit of a letdown, although I know they should still show up for Carolina. Carolina did beat Minnesota, by the way, in Carolina back on November 6th, so it is that's maybe another reason why Carolina might overlook Minnesota, because they did already beat them once. Minnesota looking for a little bit of revenge here maybe, so I don't know that they'll really be in a letdown spot here, but they're going to have to put up that effort 2 games in a row after that big win over Vegas. And the fact that they've had multiple days off actually could hurt their momentum a little bit, Minnesota, because they've won a couple of games in a row. I'm going to stay away. The money is indicating on Carolina. They're up from -145 to -160. 55% of the cash on them, 51% of the cash on Minnesota, 51% of tickets, on Minnesota. I think the public might just perceive value because Minnesota's a home underdog and their record's not that bad, and that might be what they're looking at. I'm not so sure, though. I mean, I might lean to Minnesota in that game as well, though, as a big home underdog. I think the spot is a little bit less bad for them, but in general, I don't love it at all. And then Boston is at Anaheim. Anaheim's down from -165 to -163. 75% of tickets on Anaheim. Anaheim continues to be a very public side. Boston, my Boston Bruins, 56% of the cash coming in on the Bruins. I think both of these teams are overperforming, though. I don't think either of these teams is as good as their record looks, because we've seen the odds makers have been disrespecting both teams. Anaheim's usually not going to be this big of a favorite, even though their record is good. But we know Anaheim's coming off that win where they shouldn't have won. That was my only loss 2 nights ago. I was very pissed. Anaheim scored in the final 4 seconds to force it into overtime and then won. Yes, that did break a loss streak for them, but that was a pretty big win, man. Pulling that game out the way that they did against Utah. They do have to face Ottawa tomorrow, and Ottawa is decent as well. I mean, I don't know which one of these games they're going to have more focus on, but the Bruins might bring a little bit more focus here because Anaheim did go into Boston and beat them 7-5, and that was kind of an embarrassing result for the Bruins, giving up that many goals. I think I had a win on this game. I think I gave out Anaheim in that game. So I think there was something about the spot that I liked. I don't really remember exactly what it was. Bruins had Korpisalo in net for that one too, their worst goalie. So something of note there as well. The Bruins, I don't know which goalie they're going to go with this time, though, because they used Swayman in their last game against Carolina. He's played 2 in a row, so it might actually be Korpisalo again here. I would worry about that a little bit. But the Bruins, they're starting a road trip here. I know they're coming off a tough game against Carolina, and having to go out to the Pacific Coast and play a late-night game. I know that's difficult, like your first game out on the Pacific Coast, biological clock, after playing 2 days ago. It's not great. Although a lot of times the team is focused to start a road trip, and this is still an Anaheim team that beat them at home not that long ago. So I'll still agree with the market here on the Bruins as the underdog, but I don't love it. So I just have to stay away from hockey today, man. Jeffrey, thanks for hanging out, man. Wawa, I wish we had them up here, man. They got to get their asses up into the Northeast. I'd have to go to Pennsylvania, like where you are. That's the closest Wawa to me is probably the one that you're going to. Or maybe New Jersey, there might be some. I don't know, I forget. But yeah, they're not around here. I like Wawa, but yeah, can't do it too often because they're not around here. All right, let's do the NBA, and then we do have college football too. NBA, we got Houston at Cleveland on ESPN at 7 p.m. Interesting game, 2 good teams here. I think they're both going to show up. Cleveland's coming off a nice division win over Milwaukee, though, so they are coming off a big game. And for Houston, I think the spot does set up a little bit better for Houston, as Houston's not coming off a game that was as big. Houston at home almost lost to Orlando, which was something that I talked about with a couple of different handicaps. I gave out Orlando in that game, and they covered for us here on the show. Houston now going out on the road after that might be a good thing, although they've had a couple of days off, which might disrupt their momentum a little bit, but I think they're kind of in a refocus spot after they almost lost at home as a big favorite against Orlando. The money seems to agree with Houston. They flipped from a 4-point dog to a 1.5-point favorite here. 62% of tickets, 67% of the cash on Houston. Money coming in on the Houston side here. I don't know why the line moved to that extent, though, because I don't really see any injury news. Like the Cavs, like their only injury right now is Garland. So like I don't know if maybe it was expected he was going to be back, but I don't think Garland alone would move the line 2.5 points either. So I don't know. But Garland is still out. But I think other than that, I think both teams are going to be pretty much full roster in this game for the most part. So I don't know. I would lean to Houston based on the spot. The money does seem to agree with it. It's interesting that Houston is a road favorite against Cleveland, though. So the odds makers, they're telling you they really think Houston is good, man. If they're a favorite on the road at Cleveland. Let me just double check the personnel to see if I got that wrong. Yeah, I mean, really, like as far as which names are really huge here, I know Van Vliet, I mean, he's been out for the whole season, so that's not really something that's in consideration here. But yeah, Garland's like the only one who's out for Cleveland here, so I don't know. It's weird. Charlotte at Indiana, I mean, this is a real ugly one. Charlotte just covered for us against Toronto. They took Toronto basically to the limit. Nice performance from Charlotte. Now they're going to turn around and play Indiana after that. Might be a little bit of a bad spot for Charlotte after taking Toronto almost to the limit there. Toronto's been playing pretty well. Indiana coming off a more ugly loss to Detroit, although I know Detroit's good. Indiana is returning home. They do have Cleveland up next. I don't know, man. I see nothing in this game that I really want to do anything with. I don't like it, but spot maybe a little bit better for Indiana. I mean, their road trip they're coming off of is just a single game road trip, so it's not like they were away for very long. I mean, I'll lean to taking the points of the Pacers here. Hornets did flip from a 3-point dog to a 1.5-point favorite. I think probably because of the Pacer injury situation here. I mean, they got a couple of guys that are on the injured list. Of course, we know Halliburton's not back anytime soon. Nesmith looks like he's out again here. Toppin is out for most of the season at this point. So that's what we got going on with Indiana. They're definitely a shell of a team here. But I do still lean to their side here. 58% of tickets, only 52% of the cash on the Hornets. I'll agree with that market read in fading a public road favorite Hornet team. Man, things have changed with the Pacers here. The public, it's like, what have you done for me lately? The public wants nothing to do with this one-win Pacer team, man. Toronto at Philadelphia. Part of my handicap in that Toronto game was that they would maybe be looking past Charlotte to this Philadelphia game. And it was also a return home spot that Toronto was in. So it was a bad spot for them. They barely escaped. I think they're going to have more focus on this game. Now they get back out of home again. They get to focus on Philadelphia, who, by the way, beat them in this building back on November 8th. So it's a little bit of a revenge spot for Toronto here. Now in this game, I believe, Philly was kind of more intact in this game, though. Philly was a 5.5-point favorite in that one. I believe Philly had Joel Embiid in that one. He's not going to play tonight. So that's the main reason why the line is way different here. The Raptors have flipped from plus 1.5 to minus 1.5 on the road here. But, I mean, is Embiid being out of the lineup, is that really worth moving the line like 7 points? I'm not so sure that it is, even though the money is saying Raptors here. I agree with the spot for the Raptors. I just don't know if I necessarily agree with the line being this crazy skewed towards the Raptors. 70% of tickets, 83% of the cash on the Raptors. I mean, at this price, you're asking basically just which team is going to win the game. I mean, again, I do like the spot better for Toronto. Philadelphia, they just beat LA, which was in Paul George's return. So that was kind of my hesitation because I didn't like the spot for the Clippers. So I was thinking about maybe saying lay it with Philly in that game. Gladly, I did not say that. I held off because it was Paul George's long-awaited return. So I thought that might affect the chemistry for the team a little bit for Philadelphia and that, he might have to work his way back a little bit. Now, Paul George is actually not playing tonight. But he didn't play in that first game against Toronto either, so I don't know why that would skew the line from where it was in that game to where it is in this game. Like, that shouldn't have any effect between those two games because he didn't play in either, so I don't know. But George will be out again. Now, does that mean that it's like an injured player spot again? Because this is like a rest game for Paul George. They're trying to go light on him because he just came back. And they're saving him for Milwaukee tomorrow. So that actually kind of tells you that Philadelphia is actually more focused on the game tomorrow, though, against Milwaukee, though. So that's probably part of the reason why the line is moving that crazy towards Toronto. Philadelphia is signaling that they don't care that much about this game by resting George for tomorrow's game against Milwaukee. And Embiid, I mean, he's been out for a while again now, so I don't even know when he's coming back. But does that mean that Philadelphia's team are they going to play harder in this game without George? I don't know. I don't think it's like the typical injured player theory spot here because, again, George being held out is just a signal that Philly's going to be focusing more on tomorrow's game. I'll agree with the market and lean towards the Raptors, but I don't love that number at all. So that's a stay away. Our pals, the Warriors, who failed to get it done for us last night, they're playing again on a back-to-back, and it's a third game in 4 days, fourth game in 6 days, fifth game in 8 days. This is ridiculous, dude. Sixth game in 9 days? Is that really right? Yeah, it is. And a seventh game in 11 days, all in different cities. And, I mean, this is crazy. It's actually an eighth game in 13 days and ninth game in 15 days, all in different cities. This is a terrible schedule for Golden State. Like, they've got to be getting worn out at this point. They just lost their win streak last night. Now they're on a back-to-back. This is a very, very unrested spot at the end of this road trip here. The road trip is already a success because they're 3-2 on the road trip. I guess they don't want to really fall to 3-3, but this is a pretty bad spot, dude. And then Miami coming into this with more rest, but they're coming off a big win over the Knicks, although I know that was the Knicks without both Brunson and Anunoby. Miami was able to zigzag and get that win. Jeffrey, I think you had a winner on that. I agreed with it. I wasn't in love with it. Miami barely got the win if you laid like the 1.5 there. They barely covered it. They won by 2, but they got the zigzag there. They're coming off a big win, though, man. I know it is Golden State here. I mean, does Miami even somewhat look ahead to Chicago because it's more of a conference game? I mean, because it is a conference game? I don't know, man. I don't love the spot for either team here. I don't know what I would want to do with this game, so again, I'm doing nothing with it. The Heat dropped from 7 to 6.5, so the money looks like it's taking the Warriors. 58% of tickets, only 50% of the cash on the Heat, so the money is indicating against Miami as a pretty big favorite. There's got to be a reason why Miami's favored like this, and I think Curry might actually be out in this game. He's a game-time decision, but this line is sort of indicating that Curry's going to be out here. So it would be an injured player spot for Golden State if Curry is out. So that would actually put me more on the Golden State side if Curry is out here, even though they're in a terrible rest spot. Looks like Curry might not play, and there is a chance that Adebayo comes back. So if you get both of those things happening in this game and it becomes a reverse injured player spot on the Miami side too, you know I don't like that because that means the line's going to be skewed too much towards Miami again for that reason. And maybe that is happening. Maybe that's why Maybe that's why Miami's that big of a favorite. And maybe Adebayo is coming back here. And then, he's going to have to get used to playing again. Miami's got to get used to, figuring out their roles again. So I don't love that if he comes back. So if it's both of those things, if Curry's out and Adebayo's coming back, I really don't want Miami there. I do think Miami's laying too many points. That's probably why the money's coming in against them. I don't want to touch it. There's a lot of moving parts in that game. I really don't like it. Golden State want this because, oh yeah, that's right. That's a good point. Saab. Jimmy Butler is coming back. Dude, I'm so mad because I was waiting to talk about Jimmy Butler because I just got some Seinfeld Jimmy clips and I haven't cut them and put them in the system yet because they're too long for me to play them on the show. I was going to cut a couple of the best Jimmy Seinfeld clips just to talk about Jimmy Butler and then maybe it'll become a thing and I'll use them otherwise. Man, I was going to do it. I was, whatever. Jimmy shoots. Jimmy scores. Has Golden State played at Miami since then? That's my other question. It's the first time facing them this year, I guess. But did they play them last year with Butler? I don't know if they did or if they didn't. When's the last time they played at Miami? They played them on March 25th. Miami absolutely annihilated them. Was Butler there for this game or was he not? He was. So I don't know, Saab. I think it's less of an issue because Butler already made his return to Miami, which was last March. Is his first game he played for the Warriors at Miami, so that did already happen. So I think that's less of a big deal now. Cavs got fined for resting players. That's ridiculous, dude. Like, I know the league hates it because the league wants the star players to play because, like, they want to have, it's supposed to be entertainment, but I mean, the coaches are trying to win, so it's like it's a crazy situation. You like Butler to go over his point total. I don't really have an opinion on that. I mean, yeah, he might be motivated to score a lot against his former team. It seemed like he wanted out of Miami, so he might still have a grudge against them. I don't know. You like Golden State? I don't. Like, I hate the rest spot for them, but if we have an injured player spot in here and a reverse injured player spot on the other side, there's no way that I would play Miami in that game laying that many points. That line is too high, dude. You like the Wizards? Oh, man. Yeah, Golden State did get annihilated in that game. That's true, but and I think that was the last time they played the Heat. So you're right. I mean, there is something there if they remember that Golden State. But that's an indicator on Golden State. Golden State might remember that and be pissed off because the last time they played at Miami, they got absolutely embarrassed. So maybe they remembered that. Washington at the T-Wolves. Yeah, I mean, Washington, this is just ugly, man. And maybe it's come to a head because Washington just lost to Brooklyn by 23. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than that. So you might be at the bottom of the market for Washington here after they got obliterated at home by Brooklyn. I mean, man, that is bad. Washington now gets to start a road trip after that. They have multiple days off, so it is a positive spot for Washington because they had their ugliest game of the season so far. Best to just get out of home. They've had a lot of rest, actually. Like, this is only their second game that they've played since Wednesday last week. So they're very rested at the very least. That extra rest here might help them break that losing momentum. Starting a road trip, you get to get out of home, focus on basketball. Usually you want to start the road trip off on the right foot. Minnesota, they just obliterated Dallas. Is that really a big deal, though? Crushing a Dallas team that's sucked recently? I don't know. Maybe you could argue Minnesota's going to look ahead to Phoenix because they've been hot recently. Do I think they're going to take Washington seriously? No, I don't. And then I don't know what's going on with the Anthony Edwards situation. I guess he did play in their last game. He just wasn't good, so he didn't make it into the leaders there. Dude, why is this not going back? What the fuck? All right, there it is. Yeah, so Edwards, I mean, I guess he did not miss the last game. He just didn't factor into the box score as heavily as he usually does. Our guy there, Saar, is on the injury report as a game-time decision for the Wizards there. Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with taking the points of the Wizards. It's not going to make my card, but Wolves up from 15 to 16, so you're getting more value on this if you do like it. Wolves are public for obvious reasons. The public has no intention of playing the Wizards. 74% of tickets, only 61% of the cash on the T-Wolves. I'll agree with you on that one. I would take the points as well. It's not on my card, though. Yes, correct. Miami destroyed Golden State in that game. It's a double revenge, right? Miami beat them twice. Anthony Edwards to stat pad. I'm not so sure about that because, dude, if Minnesota might just want to get in and get out of this game, so they might start pulling their starters. Like, if this game is out of reach, Minnesota might start pulling their starters out of the game to rest them. So I'm not sure. I would not want to play overs with the Minnesota star players in this game. It looks way too obvious to do it against a bad team, but when in these mismatched games, these better teams will just start resting their guys if the game's out of reach. That is the NBA. Denver at New Orleans. Denver's in a bad spot, dude. Denver just lost a long win streak. They'd won 7 games in a row. They had not lost in the month of November, and then they finally lost at home. So that can hang them over a little bit, man. I can see an argument that it's a hangover spot. After you lose a long win streak, sometimes you don't respond well to that. Although they did lose as 12.5-point home favorites, though, so they might be a little bit angry about it. So I could see the argument that they're going to refocus after that, too, because they should have won more easily. And they're going out on the road now, leaving home, so that might give them some focus here. But they got to play Houston next, man. That is a much bigger deal. Houston is considered to be one of the best teams in the West, right along with Denver, so that is a much, much bigger game. And you're going to be asking Denver to lay a ton of points here against New Orleans. New Orleans coming off another ugly game. They're playing a third game in 4 days here, but they're staying at home for all of them, so I think it's less of a big deal. New Orleans just lost to Oklahoma City by a pretty big margin. Not really a big deal. I think New Orleans should show up here. And you got to see what the injury situation is, because Zion Williamson might come back. And if he does, I kind of worry about wanting to jump in on the Pelicans here, even though, of course, he will help them. But he's been out since November 2nd. So if he comes back, it's going to be the injured player spot again where they got to work him back in and whatever. But I think regardless of whether he comes back, you're going to be getting a ton of points with New Orleans. So I think as far as how it affects the line, I don't think that matters that much. Nuggets are very public. 89% of tickets, only 79% of the cash. Up from 13.5 to 14.5. It's getting close to 15. I would take the points with New Orleans if I was going to play this game. I'm not quite there with that one because I do still see a slight argument that Denver could be angry and bounce back from that. But I do think the better way to think of this game is that they're going to be looking ahead to Houston, though, would be my opinion, and that they might be hung over after that first loss in a long time. So I lean to New Orleans in that one. Houston is on deck, yes. No, Zion has been out since November 2nd. He hasn't played the game on November 2nd was also against the Thunder. That was the last game that he played. It's just it's a coincidence. Both of those games were against the Thunder. Jokic with a triple-double. I don't like going overs with any of these star players in games where the team is a massive favorite because they might just pull their starter. You know what I mean? Like, the game might get out of hand and they'll just pull the starter, so I don't like that at all. Although I guess if you argue the game's out of hand, maybe it's because that starter did enough damage while they were in the game, but I don't love it because you might not get the full complement of minutes out of him. ESPN game at 9:30. Yeah, this one's great, isn't it? ESPN. Imagine the schedule makers with this one before the season, and now look at what this game is. The Knicks at Dallas, and you got the Knicks, I think, without Brunson and without Anunoby in this one. You got Dallas, I think, without Anthony Davis and without Kyrie Irving. I mean, what is this game? This is ridiculous. I mean, I think that's the case here. Anunoby's out for a while. He's out for a couple of weeks. Brunson is questionable, so he might actually play in this game. We'll see. Dallas injury report is extensive as usual. Anthony Davis is still out. Lively and Gafford, both game time decisions. So Mavs, again, look like they might be hurting on the interior. But at least it's good for Dallas that Anunoby is out because Anunoby would hurt them on the interior more, although they still are going to have to contend with Karl Anthony Towns here as one of New York's big men. The Knicks, coming off that loss to Miami, that was in the zigzag, though. The Knicks did not have Brunson in that game or Anunoby. Now they're going out on the road. Maybe arguably a bounce-back spot for the Knicks, but if Brunson's coming back, I don't know if I love it because it does fall into that reverse injured player spot where maybe the team will not focus as much. The Knicks, by the way, they might be looking ahead to Orlando, too, because Orlando just smashed the Knicks in New York. That was one of the Knicks' only losses in the month of November. They only have 2 losses in November, and one of them was to Orlando. And it was very recent. It was back last Wednesday, and in New York. So they might really be looking ahead to that Orlando game, man. So I do worry that this does start looking almost like a sandwich spot here for the Knicks. As far as Dallas is concerned, they just got wrecked by Minnesota on the road, although they are now playing a third game in 4 days with travel between all the games, including also, by the way, they had double overtime on Friday against the Clippers and overtime against Portland on Sunday. Both of those games were at home, but still, Dallas has played a lot of extra basketball recently, and they're decimated with injury issues right now, too. So I don't know what I would want to do. This game is a total mess, dude. Good luck to ESPN trying to get viewership on this game. The Knicks are up from 4.5 to 5.5 here. 83% of the tickets, 93% of the cash on the Knicks. So the money looks like it's coming in on the Knicks for now. I would probably lean towards taking the points with Dallas, though. We'll see how many of their big men they can actually get back in this game. I don't think it really falls into a really like a reverse injured player spot, though. If they're going to get like Lively and Gafford both playing here, I don't think it falls into that because you get multiple guys back at the same position. I think that just helps your team a lot more than it hurts you. Would Dallas be more motivated if Brunson was playing? Yeah, I mean, if Brunson is playing, I like Dallas more. I agree with that. I think it's a look-ahead spot for the Knicks there. And I think the Heat was that back-to-back against the Heat or those 2 straight games against the Heat, I think were bigger as well. So that's going to lead us to our final game here, though, which, of course, is my play. We're going to take the points with the Portland Trailblazers +3. We're going to fade Chicago. This is classic Toad here, man. I mean, look at what we're doing here. Chicago, they're playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities, the first 2 of which were in elevation in Utah and Denver. They went to double overtime on Sunday against Utah, which was a game that we won on with Utah. And then what did they do after that? The very next night, despite playing 2 overtimes, they went in and they beat Denver as like 13.5-point underdogs with Jokic in the lineup for Denver. The Bulls somehow won this game outright. Don't ask me how. I mean, it's basically because they hit 19 three-pointers, I guess, is what happened there. I mean, Denver was all right from 3. They hit 14 of them. But, yeah, I mean, just crazy that the Bulls were able to do this. I mean, both teams shot pretty average in the game. The game looked like it was just a really close game overall. But still, the Bulls, that was a huge win for the Bulls, dude. And I know it did end a loss streak for the Bulls. They had a long loss streak, so sometimes that will carry over into the next game. I don't think so here, man. I think it's a bad spot, and then the Bulls are going to come back home. They got to play Miami. I think that's a bigger game, too, because it's a conference game. And Miami very well might have Adebayo back at that point, too, so I do not like the spot for the Bulls. It is a major letdown spot, in my opinion, after that ridiculous upset win. They're going to be facing Portland. I know Portland is on a back-to-back, so that is a concern, but I like the way the schedule sets up, even though I know they're on a third game in 4 days, fourth game in 6 days. They did play into overtime against Dallas, but here's the thing about Portland, though. Portland is returning home. They return home from a road trip in their last game, so that's a bad spot. You return home from a road trip, you get a little bit distracted. Holiday was out of the lineup for that one. Although sometimes I say injured player spot, with one of your best players, you're going to step up your performance without him. But they didn't, and they lost badly. I think because it was the return home spot, maybe a distraction. They lost by 17 to Phoenix. When that happens to a team, they usually bounce back and play a lot better in the next game. Even though, yes, again, I know it is a back-to-back, but it's not exactly like Chicago is well-rested right now. For Portland, again, I think they fall into a bounce-back spot here because when you lose that first game back home, you get stuff out of the way at home, you focus better in the second game, and they have to go back out on the road. So I do think they're going to try to win one of these games on this homestand. I see them being motivated. They've lost 3 games in a row. I think they're going to show up. And, yes, there is a concern with Holiday potentially returning here, which might mean that that falls into a reverse injured player spot if he comes back here, because he is one of their best players, but he's the guy that everything runs through. And here's the thing, man. Holiday and Grant both did not play yesterday, so I actually think it might actually be good if both of those guys come back for Portland. That's going to help with this rest scenario, right? Because it's almost like Portland just rested those guys yesterday, you know what I mean? And maybe that is kind of what they did. I mean, they claim injury, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe they wanted this game more. If they decided to give these guys rest in the game yesterday, I don't know what it was, but, could be player management type of stuff, man. So if Holiday and Grant both come back. I mean, these are like some of their best players, dude. Grant, 18 whatever points per game. If both of those guys come back, I think that is going to make a difference, and they're going to be fresh because they didn't play yesterday. So the hope is that both these guys are going to come back. I think they might. I mean, Grant was out with an illness on Tuesday, which seems like a bullshit reason for him to be out. Holiday had a calf injury. I'm not even sure what it is. We'll see, but I think this is the right play, man. The Bulls are up from 1.5 to 3. We're getting points at home with the Blazers. 81% of tickets, 82% of the cash on the Bulls. Bulls are going to be very public. Portland, I mean, they're at least decent at home. They're 500 at home. Bulls are not very good on the road, 2-5, even though I know they inexplicably beat Denver on the road, but the Bulls have been a lot better at home. So, yeah, we're going to do it. Portland Trail Blazers will be the play there to finish the NBA card there. You like the Blazers in first quarter, first half, and full game. Hell yeah, you're on it too. All right. Oh, yeah, Miami eliminated Chicago in the play-in. That's correct. Yeah, I forgot about that. I forget, yeah, the play-ins, I forget exactly what happens in those and how they work, but it's kind of that round robin. Not round robin, but like there's like a winner bracket and loser bracket type of thing. So Chicago will be looking ahead to Miami because it's revenge for knocking them out last year. That's true because, yeah, Chicago was in the play-ins, and they didn't make it into the actual playoffs, and Miami did. Yeah, that's correct. And Miami, I believe, wound up playing against, was it Cleveland that Miami got, I think? And then Miami got eliminated, of course, against Cleveland. I believe that's what happened, right, if I remember correctly? All right. So Miami wound up with the 8th seed there. All right, let's talk about college football, these MACtion games, which I don't find to be of interest here. I mean, we have some things to talk about here. The better of the two games is the one that's the first on the card. I mean, I usually talk about the better one second, but whatever. Miami, Ohio at Buffalo. These two teams are both, they're both okay. Miami, Ohio, I think, is the better of the two. This is on ESPN2 at 7 p.m. It's in Buffalo. As far as these two teams both could still make the MAC championship, as we have Western Michigan with another win last night, sitting at 6-1. Western Michigan pretty much has it wrapped up that they're going to be one of the teams in the MAC title game. As far as the rest of the MAC is concerned, it's still kind of a battle between a lot of these two lost teams here that all could still make it potentially. Miami, Ohio, though, I don't know if Miami, actually, yeah, I don't know if Miami, Ohio can actually make it because if they tie Ohio, they still actually don't have the tiebreaker. So Miami, Ohio, well, they have 2 games left, so Miami, Ohio could wind up being, where are they at here? What are they at? 5-5? Yeah, they could wind up being 7-5. Well, we're talking about conference play only, though. Yeah. So Miami, Ohio could wind up 6-2. So Ohio could potentially lose at Buffalo. So that's the way that Miami, Ohio could overtake them. Miami, Ohio would have to win out, and Ohio would have to lose at Buffalo. So that's the way it works. So Miami, Ohio was not eliminated from getting into the MAC championship. So neither of these teams are eliminated, Miami, Ohio, or Buffalo. Miami, Ohio, they're on a 2-game skid, man, and they lost to Toledo last week. And I told you Toledo was under the radar. Man, Toledo a lot better than their record would indicate. That was exactly a week ago. It was a really ugly game, man. So even though, yeah, Toledo's better than they look, I think Miami, Ohio could be in line for a bounce back here. But you got to look at what's going on with their quarterback situation, I think, because I think Finn was their better quarterback, and I think he might be injured. I don't know, man. I think he might not play here. Although they were using their other guy, Hessen or whatever, for multiple games this year, so I don't know if it matters that much. They're going on the road here to face Buffalo. Both teams are actually 5-5 and 4-2 in the conference, so both teams are looking for their 6th win. Both teams would make a bowl if they get the win. I think both teams made a bowl last year, too, so I don't know if bowl eligibility is that big of a deal, but that is one of these teams. I think one of these teams' goals this year and every year is to make a bowl, I would say. So I think it is a big deal to try to get the 6th win. They're both trying to win as well just because they're both still in contention for the MAC. Buffalo has not played they've not played Ohio yet. So Buffalo, They play Ohio next, so if Buffalo was able to win out here, I think they would actually get into the MAC championship potentially, depending on what the other teams do. So is that a look-ahead spot? I don't think so, really, because they got to beat both of these teams. This is an interesting game, man, and this is not Buffalo's final home game. It is not Senior Day because they do play Ohio at home next week. Both teams have the exact same rest scenario here. Both teams played last Wednesday, and both teams lost. Buffalo lost at Central Michigan last week. A pretty ugly loss at Central Michigan. Central Michigan's okay, but not as good as Toledo. A lot going on in this game. Miami Ohio's flipped from a plus 1.5 dog to a 2.5 point favorite here. But it looks like maybe the cash starting to come back in on the Buffalo side. 68% of the tickets, 74% of the cash on Buffalo. I don't have much of an opinion on the side here. Both teams are going to show up. Very low total, down from 40 to 39.5. So if you think it's going to be a tough, low-scoring game, taking the points at home kind of makes sense with Buffalo, but there's no way that I'm going to recommend a play on this. I think the under is actually the better way to look here. 60% of the tickets on the over, 64% of the cash on the under with an extremely low total. It's low for a reason, man. I mean, both of these offenses are somewhat bad, and it's going to be a game where, like, it's going to be like a playoff type of game, man. I mean, this game, I think, matters a lot to both teams, so I think it will be a tough game. So, from that respect, it could be played as a lower scoring game. Teams taking fewer risks. Defense is more focused. Both teams coming off losses as well that were kind of ugly again. So that kind of leads to that as well. Both teams being focused. I know I was wrong about the Western Michigan game being an under game last night. What can you do, man? You can't get them all right. And then the ugly game on ESPNU at 7 p.m. Central Michigan and Kent State. Central Michigan, they just became bowl eligible, man, and that could set up kind of a letdown for Central Michigan because they have not been in a bowl since, I believe, 2021. So Central Michigan getting back to a bowl, that's big, and that's what they did last week on Wednesday. They beat Buffalo, handled them pretty well. So good performance for Central Michigan. Now they got to go on the road to Kent State. I mean, Kent State still might be a team that doesn't totally draw your focus, and Central Michigan does face Toledo to finish off the season at home in senior night, and that would be a big game because Toledo's good. That has me starting to look to maybe fade Central Michigan here, but the problem is Central Michigan, they're in third place in the MAC right now, so they have a legitimate shot to make the MAC championship. So I think they're going to continue to show up for these games for that reason, man, even though I think they did reach their main goal this year. I don't think they really had realistic expectations to win the MAC this year. I think their goal was to get back to a bowl after how ugly their season was last year. But now that they've done that and they're right there, I do think they're going to keep showing up. And I don't think the spot is good for Kent State, so that's kind of the problem here. Even though Kent State, hilariously, if they win their remaining 2 games, they would actually become bowl eligible, which is hilarious. I still think Kent State is not good, dude. I mean, Kent State's wins, one was against UMass, who can't beat anybody. They're, like, absolutely, without a doubt, the worst team in FBS. One was a BS win against Bowling Green that shouldn't have happened, and Bowling Green's not very good either. Bowling Green down right at the bottom of the MAC, too. And then the other win for Kent State, which was really the only legitimate win, because their first win, by the way, was the one with Dorelis Clark's kick return against Merrimack. He's good, though. He's an electric player, but he had, like, a huge play in their game, I think, against Akron, too. But I mean, that game barely beating Merrimack, that's an indictment on Kent State, too. I mean, their only good win was last week against Akron. And if you look at what happened in this game, that was a huge game for one thing, because Kent State, Akron, that's a big rivalry game in Ohio. And Kent State probably considers themselves to be the littler of the two teams right now, especially with how bad Kent State was last year. But with Kent State getting, kind of these unimpressive / misleading wins, I still don't think Kent State is anywhere near as good as what this record looks like. So if they somehow make a bowl, it would be absolutely hilarious. But yeah, this game, I mean, if you look at what happened in this game, Kent State had a huge lead. They were up 35-17 in the fourth quarter. They blew the whole thing, went into overtime, and then they won the game at overtime. And again, huge win in a rivalry game, and it was a big upset win too, as they were 7.5 point dogs in this game. But if you look at the stat sheet, Akron outgained them 530 to 374. Out first down them 33 to 13. I think I pointed this out last night because Akron played last night. Outpossessed them 38-40 to 21-20. Akron dominated this game statistically, man. They dominated the yardage. They did lose the turnover battle by 1. They dominated first downs heavily. Dominated possession. So this game was not what it looked like. So this is a bad spot for Kent State too, man, in my opinion, even though it is also senior night for them, though. This is their final home game, and they're hosting it on ESPNU, and they still could potentially make a bowl, as ridiculous as that is. But that Akron game was big, man, so I don't know. I mean, it looks like it could be a major letdown spot for them, and that was a misleading win for them. I think both teams kind of in letdown spots. Their Central Michigan's up from 8.5 to 9.5 here. Do they deserve to be a 9.5-point favorite on the road? Even though I think Kent State is way, way overrated here, I don't really think Central Michigan should be favored by that much. Their offense is not really that good. 53% of tickets, 73% of the cash on Kent. So the money's coming in towards Kent State here. I don't even know if I have much of a strong opinion on this one, man. I mean, I would probably even actually lean to fade Kent State a little bit because I think that win was pretty monumental against Akron. And now that Central Michigan is here, I think they're going to still show up for these games to try to get into the MAC title. The total is up from 47.5 to 50.5. I don't disagree with over in this game, even though I know I just said Central Michigan's offense is bad, but I don't think either defense is trustworthy. 78% of tickets, 79% of the cash on the over. Both teams kind of in spots where they did have big performances last week. Like Central Michigan became bowl eligible. Kent State got that big win over their rival Akron. So both teams could be a little bit lackluster in this game defensively. So I do not disagree with an over in that game. And that is going to do it, man. Yes, Miami got destroyed by Cleveland. Did they get swept? They might have. I forget. That's going to do it, man. Once again, my plays today. UConn minus the points. This is all college basketball here. Bellarmine plus the points. Kansas City plus the points. Illinois minus the points. Jackson State plus the points. Although I know I apologize that UConn. Dude, these lines, they just move so fast, dude. So hopefully you can get the line like right when I give it out on the show and that it's a better number because I do the handicapping on this like in the morning for the most part. So like shortly before I do the show, and then the Connecticut line has already moved like 3 points. It's ridiculous. I apologize. If you want to play it, maybe still do it, but put a little bit less money on it, or maybe money line parlay UConn with something else because I do think they'll win. Jackson State plus the points is the last one, and then we were also going to be on the Portland Trail Blazers plus the points in the NBA. I think you'd still get 3 on that one. I don't think it'll really get higher than that because I think if Holiday and or I forget the other guy's name already. If those two guys come back, the line probably will drop a bit on Portland. So Bears giving more than 2.5 to the Steelers. The Bears are the most fraudulent team that I've ever seen. The Bears absolutely suck ass. They're -6 in point differential. I don't think I've ever seen an 8-3 team be negative point differential. They just keep winning these games they should not win. Caleb Williams is not good. Bears are absolute ass. It looks way too easy to play the Bears in that game, especially if Aaron Rodgers is out. Some little bit of a preview for my NFL card here. I don't know if Pittsburgh is going to make my card or not, but obviously I lean to the Steelers in that game. The Bears are an absolute fraud. They're the most fraudulent team in the NFL this year, maybe the most fraudulent that I've ever seen. The line, the line makes it look like the odds makers want you to play the Bears in that game. I think it's a complete trap. The Bears have a lot of games where, they have wins against bad teams. They have wins in games they shouldn't have won. They're no good. I don't know what else I have to say about that, but yeah. definitely a trap. Line looks too low on an 8-3 team like that. That's going to do it. Learn to Toad on Twitter. Learn to Toad on Instagram. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Very long show today. Won't be as long tomorrow because I think the college basketball card won't be anywhere near as extensive, I think. Hopefully not for the next 2 days. We will have football. Am I still Mr. Thursday night, though, because I said the Jets plus the points last week, and I think they pushed on the closing number of 13. So am I still Mr. Thursday night? If you want to say that I'm now 9-1-1, even though on ESPN it was only 12.5, so I think I actually lost the pick on ESPN's pick 'em by a half point, which is bullshit, but we'll see. I have an opinion on the Thursday night game, although I don't know if it's going to be one that makes my card. I do like one of the sides to somewhat of an extent, though, in tomorrow's NFL game. And you probably know what it is, knowing how I do things. That's going to do it for now. Learn to Toad on Twitter. Learn to Toad on Instagram. Like, subscribe to the show here. Leave good comments. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. All the regulars. I want to get some more viewers here, man. I want to see some more new faces. I've been hot, man, so tell people about the show. Hopefully more people find out about the show. I don't know. Let's blow this thing up. I've been giving out, maybe Vegas won't like it. The odds makers won't like it because I've been giving out so many winners recently. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I should get noticed. And then I have, of course, I'm on audio with this show as well. Apple and Spotify. Give me a good review over there. Listen to the show there. Covered in Uke is my Uke channel on YouTube, which I know I don't keep it nearly up to date as I should. My voice is still struggling, so I don't know. I got to get into the Christmas Uke covers too. Although I've basically done all the ones that I kind of have wanted to do over the years, but I might just repeat some of them this year. The hits. We'll see. And then patreon.com/learn-to-toad, and you can get requests. You can request songs for me and bonus Uke Spotify feed there as well. That's going to do it. Thanks, guys. I'm starting to get hungry as usual at the end of this show. Going to eat some lunch. Peace for now, guys.